After these elections, we have a government with a high majority, shows that the democracy is live here. And I can assure you that there is no any intention to break this government in the next months or even years. We discussed how we'll have a full term, although we created a very complex support of this government.
But Mr. Prime Minister, sorry to interrupt, but the woman who's supposed to take over from you as PM doesn't want you to take her job as Foreign Minister. If she refuses and her party refuse to allow you to be Foreign Minister, will the coalition break up or not?
I don't think so. I think there was a kind of drama that was created by some other participants in this political show, if you like, because I had a quite constructive discussions with my Deputy Prime Minister that is supposed to become a Prime Minister after a month from now. So this is a normal part of the negotiations. Actually, the fact that we are in such a constructive negotiation process shows that the democracy is working here. So not agree that this is a sign of weakness. It is the opposite. The fact that we made this government initially under different conditions, after that we changed the constitution based on this majority, which is 2/3 of majority in the parliament. We made very significant changes in the judicial system. All these are efforts that show that there is a stable ground for this government to continue further in the future. So it doesn't look so grim as it might appear from the discussions in the media. This majority gives us not only the hope, it gives us the plan that we have to realize to make our progress into the European direction in the next months and years.
We have to end there, but Prime Minister Nikolai Denkov, I thank you very much indeed for joining me from Sofia.
That was Hard Talk. I'm Jeff Goods. You're listening to CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Well, good Friday morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg. It's 3 minutes to 6. And thanks for joining us on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or on YouTube. Today, another sunny day ahead and a high of -8 in Winnipeg. So, yeah, that's going to be a little colder than we've had. And then we get really warm if the long-range forecast holds. But today, we'll be looking for -8. Let's say good morning to everyone. Abby Adiemi, good morning. I don't often start with your name for some reason, so it's nice to see you. Abby is our technical producer and is behind the controls of the show, also covers weather on the program. Good morning, Mr. Corey Funk. Corey is our show director and covers what is going on in the Good Morning Commute. Good morning to Brad Lillies, who's behind our YouTube controls. And Heather Wells is also in. Good morning to you. She has our headlines.
Good morning. Well, the councillor for Transcona wants the province to fine the city of Winnipeg $1 billion for dumping raw sewage into the Red River. More than 225 million litres of sewage was discharged into the river over the past 2 weeks after 2 major sewer pipes failed. Russ Wyatt says there should be consequences. He says the city's not doing enough to maintain and upgrade sewer pipes. Some Winnipeggers say they are frustrated after they were caught by the fallout of Lynx Air closing down. Cara Brereton Cook and her 6 friends were in Vancouver for a bachelorette party. Now all of them are out hundreds of dollars after the airline shutdown forced them to rebook their flight home on a different airline. We're going to hear from her in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Let's have a look at what's in the program today. In the first hour of Information Radio this morning, we're going to talk about parents and whether or not you're over-celebrating your children's milestones or not. Some parents are applauding smaller measures of progress. They're calling them inch stones. And if you've never heard of that, we'll talk about that. And is it harmful or beneficial to your child to celebrate more? So stay tuned and we'll have that conversation. In addition, we're going to hear more from Russ Wyatt, who, as you've been hearing in the news, wants the province to fine the city nearly $1 billion for that massive sewage leak. So we're going to hear about that in the first hour, a conversation that he had with our City Hall reporter, Cameron McLean, and that's coming up just before 7 o'clock. Right now, though, it's 1 minute to 6, and World Report is first. Stay tuned.
On Cue with Tom Power. For over 30 years, Marlon Wayans had a lot of success in comedy. In Living Color, Scary Movie, White Chicks, but all character. Now Marlon is standing on stage by himself as himself, and he'll be here to tell you how that feels.
I still know I have so much more to do and so much further I'm going to go.
That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel-Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Peter Cowan in St. John's. Tomorrow, just before 5 a.m. in Kyiv, marks 2 years since Russia began its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Today, Ukraine is still managing to hold on, but President Volodymyr Zelensky says his country needs F-16 fighter jets in the sky. Ukrainian pilots are being trained to fly the jets right now, and there's more support coming from the West. The United States is poised to levy sanctions on 500 Russian-linked targets today to mark the grim anniversary. And this afternoon, the UN Security Council is holding a private meeting to discuss the war. But Russia's army is strong, and as Murray Brewster tells us, it's regenerating itself at a pace that Western military leaders were not expecting.
They are sparing no effort in their reconstitution.
General Chris Cavoli is NATO's supreme commander, reflecting on Russia's attempts to rebuild its shattered army.
They are devoting an enormous fraction of their budget to the military over the coming years.
And the figures are sobering. Moscow will spend 6% of its gross domestic product on the military this year, a big jump from 2023. But Admiral Rob Bauer, the head of NATO's military committee, says much of that is refurbishing Cold War-era stocks of tanks and equipment.
They are rebuilding, but most of the time it's older types they're rebuilding, or they're taking types out of capabilities or equipment out of stock.
Russia's defense ministry wants to increase the size of the military by 30% to 1.5 million personnel. While they haven't achieved that, Russia's recruitment is running at about 85% of its targets, bringing in roughly 10,000 fresh troops per month. You can see that in Ukraine, where Russia began 2023 with 360,000 troops in the country and ended the year with 470,000. Victoria Nuland, the U.S. Undersecretary of State, says Russian President Vladimir Putin is also getting help from China, Iran, and North Korea.
This is massively destabilizing.
Last May, U.S. intelligence estimated it would take a decade for Russia to recover from the war. That estimate has been revised by the Germans, who are now saying between 5 and 8 years. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Ottawa.
As the 2-year anniversary of the Ukraine war approaches, the U.S. is imposing hundreds of new sanctions against Russia. In part, they'll be aimed at undermining the Kremlin's war machine. Journalist Benji Heyer is in Washington. Benji, what action is the Biden administration announcing today?
Peter, good morning. The administration calls these sanctions major, massive, crushing, the biggest since Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine 2 years ago. In a statement early this morning, President Joe Biden says the US and Western partners must ensure Russia and its President Vladimir Putin, quote, pay the price for his death and destruction. Now, the vast majority of these measures are designed to further impede Russia's war effort, in part by imposing restrictions to close existing gaps in the sanctions regime that Russia's been able to evade so far. That could include focusing on nations funding Russia's economy and energy sector, the likes of global superpowers, India and China.
The White House is also wanting to punish Russia for the death of the opposition leader, Alexei Navalny. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, included in these wide-ranging sanctions are a set targeting individuals connected to Navalny's imprisonment, mirroring the sort of measures announced recently by European countries aimed at people working at the penal colony where Navalny was held. President Joe Biden has, in fact, for days hinted at such possible consequences. He blamed his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, for the death of the imprisoned opposition leader. And these sanctions, the White House says, will help ensure Putin pays an even steeper price for his repression at home. Navalny, of course, a prominent Putin critic, locked up on charges which many Western states view as politically motivated.
Thanks, Benji.
Peter, thank you.
Journalist Benji Heyer in Washington. The controversy over the ArriveCan app is getting a whole lot more complicated and conspiratorial. A parliamentary committee is looking into how costs swelled to $60 million. Yesterday, the committee heard from 2 public servants who have been suspended without pay for their role in the project. They say they're being used as scapegoats. Janice McGregor is in our parliamentary bureau. Janice, what did these public servants tell the committee?
This testimony was a defiant mix of defense and offense. The two men have lawyered up and gone to court to fight the internal investigation. They say they haven't been told what they're even accused of. Here's Cameron McDonald.
I'm concerned that we're not getting a fair fight and that information is being withheld that would allow us to defend ourselves from these egregious allegations.
They also say they don't know what the Mounties are probing. Here's Antonio Utano.
We're not sure if we're even involved in the RCMP investigation. We haven't been contacted by the RCMP in their investigation.
And they wanted MPs to understand that, in fact, they were not the contracting authorities that signed off as the budgets ballooned on ArriveCan. Their bosses apparently made that call. The testimony was a blistering attack on the people above them. They said the CBSA's president, Aaron O'Gorman, lied to the committee to scapegoat them. And as for their former boss, who's now the government's chief technology officer,
I think it's pretty clear that tens of thousands of emails were deleted by Min Doan.
If the Auditor General didn't get the right inputs, they said she couldn't reach the right outputs. CBSA confirmed this week that 40 of its servers are curiously down for maintenance. And they also lashed out at Bottler, the whistleblowing firm that triggered this investigation, a firm they say apparently asked for a contract after making its allegations. Its founders, they vaguely suggested, may have political ties, but they didn't substantiate this or another claim that Doan's been faking health issues to avoid accountability. An MP openly challenged whether they're entirely reliable when they say stuff like that. And we're now left with a lot of divergent and contradictory information, making it hard to say who's telling the truth here.
So, Janice, what happens next?
Well, the committee has unanimously called for the Public Sector Integrity Commissioner to investigate the allegations of wrongdoing on top of all the other probes already underway. And this committee's not done yet. Earlier this week, it voted to force contractors to appear as witnesses.
Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Thanks, Janice.
You're welcome.
Calgary-based Lynx Air is suspending operations. The low-cost airline has filed for creditor protection, citing rising costs that include fuel, airport charges, and what it calls a difficult economic and regulatory environment. The company will stop flying as of Monday. That news has left some passengers in the lurch. Cara Brereton-Cook was supposed to fly from Vancouver to Winnipeg.
Supposed to go home on Saturday, so we actually just booked a flight through Air Canada, thankfully, to get home. But we're all out now about $630, where this Lynx flight cost us about $275 return.
Federal Transportation Minister Pablo Rodriguez says he expects Lynx Air will assist passengers with getting return flights and refunds. The company has been operating for less than 2 years. Vice Media is cutting hundreds of jobs as it shifts the way it publishes its content. The company says it'll stop posting to the website. Instead, it will distribute content through partnerships with other media companies. For years, Vice has been facing serious financial challenges. It filed for bankruptcy last May after numerous rounds of staff layoffs. And finally, students from across the Northwest Territories are in Inuvik for the annual Northern Games and Dene Games Summit. They're a test of strength, but cultural teachings from local elders are also an important part of the games. CBC's Des Loreen has the story.
On your mark, get set, go!
Performing feats of strength. 82 people compete in sports like snowshoe racing, triple jump, and the 1-foot high kick.
That's it, give her some energy, right on.
In the 1-foot high kick, the athlete jumps up, kicks a hanging target, often made of sealskin or caribou hide, with 1 foot, and has to land on the same foot. The game is a test of agility. Tuktoyaktuk High School student Chase Nugasuk got to break his personal best.
My biggest highlight is when I kicked 7-6 yesterday.
This is the 10th year the school district has hosted the Northern and Dene Games Summit.
It's awesome. Good to see. Good to be a part of it.
Inuvialuit elder Jerry Kassoon has been a part of the games since his youth.
The traditional games that we've been taught when we were kids, have it in the education system, in an education facility.
Alyssa Irish Memagana of Uluhaktuk was excited to send her gold medal results back home to her family.
The highlight of this Arctic sports is 1 foot, hand games, and probably just having fun.
Kassoon appreciates the youth effort to connect to their culture.
Oh, we've had a pretty good week. I think we've had a few injuries along the way, but the kids are out here, they're trying, they're doing their best. Kids don't give up, man.
Some of these athletes will be competing again in March in Alaska at the Arctic Winter Games. Des Loreen, CBC News, Inuvik, Northwest Territories.
And that's the latest national and international news from World Report. For news anytime, go to cbcnews.ca. I'm Peter Cowan.
Good morning, everyone. It is Friday. Thanks for joining us on CBC's Information Radio. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM, on the app, on YouTube. We're everywhere with you. And you're probably at home thinking, I'm just in one place. But we thank you for listening to us this morning. Maybe you're already out and about. Today's going to be a little chillier than we've had, our high -8. Abby will have some more forecast details momentarily. This hour on the show, do you celebrate in your family birthdays, graduations, or do you do more? Right now, parents are starting to celebrate all other markers in a child's development. They call them inch stones. If you've never heard of this, we're going to have a conversation about it. And then we'll talk about whether or not it's beneficial or not to celebrate more things in a child's life. In addition, a Winnipeg City Councillor this hour, we're going to hear from him. He wants the province to fine the city of Winnipeg nearly $1 billion for the massive sewage leak that's been pouring into the Red River for 2 weeks now. So that's Russ Wyatt. It was moving this story in the news yesterday, but we're going to hear the interview between our City Hall reporter, Cameron McLean, and Russ Wyatt about why he put this forward, this idea. So that's coming up just before 7 o'clock. Right now, let's turn our attention to Heather Wells, who is in with news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. A mental health advocate says cities need to move away from having police be the first responders to mental health and well-being calls. This renewed call comes after a 59-year-old man struggling with mental health issues was shot dead by Winnipeg police last week. We'll hear more on that. In the 2 years since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, more than 20,000 Ukrainians have come to Manitoba. One of them is Yulia Okremenko. She and her 6-year-old son arrived in Winnipeg in 2022, and she's grateful for the support and for her job as a florist, but says it hasn't been easy. And she says she doesn't usually show people what she feels, but says it is really hard. We'll hear from her as well in our next local news at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that anniversary coming up tomorrow, there's a number I know of local events and things planned to commemorate the 2-year mark. And after 7 o'clock, actually, we're going to speak with 2 other local Ukrainians who are living now in Winnipeg, or rather Ukrainians who are now local and living in Winnipeg, to talk about their experiences in the city as well. So we'll have a lot of coverage this morning. All right, let's turn our attention to the guys, to Abby Adeyemi and Corey Funk. Good morning, you guys.
Hi. Good morning.
It's cold this morning. It's I think the coldest morning we've had this week, and maybe the coldest one we'll have moving forward.
It's a chilly start, a lot colder than yesterday. Yesterday we reached a high of 4, right, in the afternoon. And this morning, as you're stepping out, that north wind is going to be making it feel very, very brisk. And we are currently at -14 under partly cloudy skies. Expect mainly sunny conditions today with the high of -8. However, the wind, that north wind I made mention of, is going to be making the chill feel more like -23 this morning. And then it's going to improve during the afternoon period. So you might want to prepare adequately as you step out this morning. Tonight is going to be clear for those that want to watch the full moon, and then you need to watch out for the shift in the wind to the south at 30 gusts into 50, because the temperature is going to drop into -12 later tonight, making that wind chill feel like -20. So if you have like Friday night plans, just know it's going to be chilly later tonight. But right now, Winnipeg, we are starting at -14.
Corey Funk, the commute?
Yeah, pretty quiet out there so far. I will tell you the sidewalks are a lot slipperier than they were yesterday because of that melt and then that freeze all of a sudden. I found myself sliding on the way here today. So do look out for that if you are hitting the sidewalks this morning. If you see something going on out there, otherwise, give me a call, 204-788-3093.
6:14 is the time right now. Well, as I mentioned, birthdays and graduation are events that we often think of as milestones in a child's life and worthy milestones to throw a party for. But if social media is any indication, some parents are now finding smaller victories to celebrate. They're calling them inch stones. Think major festivities when a child gets their first tooth, or a bundle of balloons when they give up a pacifier. Joining me now with her thoughts on celebrating everything is Sarah Dimmerman. She's a psychologist and author of How to Influence Our Kids for Good. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what do you think of this idea, celebrating inch stones?
So I think that it may be a little bit over the top. I worry about the precedent that parents may be setting by throwing parties or celebrating inch stones in any kind of grand way.
What constitutes a grand way? Like a bundle of balloons?
Well, actually, I first became aware of this when someone that I know who's a new parent threw a half birthday party for their son with 6-month banners and other half-year paraphernalia on the table and around the room. And when I saw their pictures on Facebook, I was surprised because I'd never seen a half birthday party before. And then I became aware that, based on all the different decorations, that there must be a market for this. Never before had I heard about anyone having a get-together to celebrate the first 6 months. And so, to me, that's grand. Having people over and having a cake and having a party to celebrate a half year. I think that don't get me wrong. I think it's wonderful to celebrate celebrations, but that parent might be setting themselves up for a lot of work moving forward.
You mentioned the word marketing a couple of times. Now, I don't want to be like the old grouchy fuddy-duddy, but there's a huge change in how things are marketed.
Yeah.
Even, there was no graduation from kindergarten or elementary school or back in the day. Now there's mini grad hats, there's smash cakes, like there's things that are sort of, and it's all through marketing.
Yeah.
And then people end up keeping up with the Joneses.
Absolutely.
I guess the question is, can it do harm for people that are listening and saying, I like that? So can it do harm?
I don't think it can do, depending on this, like when we talk about harm, I think what it might do, however, is to set children up for disappointment if they feel that every single inch stone is celebrated and acknowledged. Then they may look to that. And if a parent sometimes doesn't celebrate one of their inch stones, they may think, what have I done wrong? What do I have to do to get another celebration? And then especially moving outside of the home into school and into the workplace eventually, if not everything is celebrated or acknowledged, then they may feel that they're not good enough. So I think you have to be selective, or I would encourage parents to be selective in regards to how much they want to make a big deal of things. I think it's quite okay and authentic for parents to just jump up and down or clap their hands or say certain things that make a child recognize that they're being acknowledged.
Beyond marketing, of course, there's also social media that you've alluded to. How much is that influencing all these trends we're seeing?
Well, absolutely. When we throw a half birthday party, it's not for the child. It's for the people around you. Part of it is to just say we're celebrating because we're so excited to have a baby. But the other part of it is, what am I posting on social media? Am I posting this to set a trend? Am I posting it, as you said earlier, to keep up with the Joneses? So absolutely, so much of our lives are documented for other people to see, as opposed to things being done just in the privacy of our homes and not putting them on social media.
How do families that might have children with who live with developmental delays or neurological differences factor into this conversation?
Well, I think that's how this all started, was becoming aware of the inch stones that we would see as inch stones really being milestones for certain children that weren't able to walk at the same age as other children or weren't able to walk at all. So I think that's why this came to be in some way, or this word came to be. But I think that even then, the milestone inch stones could be celebrated on less of a grand scale. And again, a child benefits so much from just seeing the glee in a parent's face, and just from applause or a big hug or certain things like that. So I don't think that I would encourage parents of children who have special needs to behave any different way, but I can understand why the celebration might be grander.
Really interesting conversation, Sarah. I'm going to open the phone lines on it. Appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Take care.
Sarah Dimmerman is a psychologist and author of How to Influence Our Kids for Good. So if you're a parent and you're listening, and maybe you're thinking, no, you know what, I like to do all of this, works for me and my family, or if you the concerns that Sarah mentioned that can crop up resonate with you, love to take calls on this one. So if you're up early with your family today, 788-3205.
Frequencies with Errol Nazareth.
The world is alive with sound, whether across the street or across the pond, from back home or in your own backyard. Every place has a sound and every person has a story. Discover songs and stories from people and communities across Canada and around the world.
Frequencies with host Errol Nazareth. Episodes available on demand on the CBC Listen app.
Thompson, you are clear in minus 37 degrees this morning. Wow. Winnipeg, partly cloudy, minus 14. Coldest morning of the week we've had here to start. And the daytime high is going to be the coldest we've seen as well. A high of minus 8 in Winnipeg. Lots of sunshine, though. And yesterday, wow, was there ever a lot of melting? We got well above zero yesterday. Well, not well above zero, but more than 1 degree, right? And at this time of year, we'll take it. Although we do need more moisture. If you want to read a story about that, by the way, how this winter or lack of winter has affected our moisture levels in Manitoba and what is needed, check it out. Riley did some analysis of that. Well, what continues right now is Festival du Voyageur. So I just want to let people know to head out to a festival park and check out all of the different performers that are going to be on there. Next on the show, we have music from Brandy Vezina, who connects with her new country roots in a single. Here she is with Old Fashioned Values.
Coffee is best with an early morning sunrise. Ain't nothing like singing hymns at the Sunday church. If you're gonna do something, do it right the first time. Count your blessings and always keep your word. Pass down things you learned and what you know. 'Cause those old-fashioned values will make you grow. Like Grandma and Grandpa, living what they're teaching. You reap all the seeds you plant when it comes harvest season. Kinda like a shooting star you wish on before it's gone. All the things you know you're gonna miss, so you try to hold on. Pass down things you learned and what you know. 'Cause those old-fashioned values will make you grow. Love your neighbor like you love yourself. Pray for peace and pray for a little rain. Make the most out of the hand you dealt. And there ain't nothing wrong with raising a little Cain. Like Grandma and Grandpa, living what they're teaching. You reap all seeds you plant when it comes harvest season. Kinda like a shooting star you wish on before it's gone. All the things you know you're gonna miss, so you try to hold on. Pass down things you learned and what you know. 'Cause those old-fashioned values will make you grow.
That's the latest from Red River Métis singer-songwriter Brandy Vezina. That's old-fashioned values. And if you want to check out Festival de Voyageurs and all the many local performers who are celebrating in St. Boniface, remember it continues through this weekend. 6:25 a.m. is the time. I'm Marcy Marcuse. It is Friday morning. Thank you for joining us on this February 23rd with our team here at Information Radio. So Brad and Corey and Abby behind the glass today, and Heather Wells is in our news center this morning. We're going to hear from her at 6:30 with the latest and what's developing in news. Right now, let's see what's the latest at the Scotties. 4 Manitoba rinks have qualified for playoff spots in the Scotties Tournament of Hearts. Jennifer Jones out of St. Vital, Carrie Anderson out of the Gimli Curling Club, Kate Cameron's crew from Winnipeg's Granite Curling Club, and then we also have Caitlin Laws, of course, from Fort Rouge Curling Club. Amazing. Curling remains in the spotlight as the tournament continues in Calgary, but according to the internet, who knows who came up with this, but today is Curling is Cool Day. But is curling really cool all across the country? Well, we know in Manitoba the answer is yes. But CBC's Amy Fian hit the streets of Corner Brook to find out.
Curl! Curl! Whoa! Whoa! Curl! Hard mat! Hard mat!
Do you watch curling?
No.
No?
Sometimes if it's on, I'll enjoy a game, but don't watch it that much.
No, I don't. No? You don't like it at all?
No, I don't watch it. I don't know. I've just never watched it. I don't know the rules.
Okay. Do you think it's a cool sport? Do you think people who play it are cool, or?
I'm actually playing tomorrow for the first time.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah.
What made you want to try it?
We're having a class game, so yeah.
Well, I hope you have a good time.
Thank you.
Do you watch curling?
I don't.
I'm asking people if they think it's a cool sport.
Oh, I mean, I think anything's cool that you love.
Okay, I like that answer. Thank you.
What?
Curling.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Do you enjoy it? Do you think it's a cool sport?
Sure.
Yeah. What makes it cool?
Well, just the competition and the people more than anything, I guess.
So.
And the rest of the crowd.
Yeah. So do you find you get really invested in it like hockey, or is it more?
Not as much, but, it's hard to keep up with hockey.
What would you say to people who don't really like to watch curling?
Give it a try.
Do you enjoy it? Do you think it's a cool sport?
Oh, yeah, I love it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What about it do you like?
Well, my dad used to watch it, and I used to think it was a stupid sport until he told me how it was played, and then I started watching it.
And then you got into it and started enjoying it.
Yeah.
What do you think makes a cool sport like?
Well, as long as you're having fun, I guess, and you're enjoying it, and, and as a comrade thing, a lot of people together.
Easy, yeah, Tim. Whoa, 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 Scott. Go, 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 go.
Curling is Cool Day is today. That's CBC's Amy Fian out asking folks if curling is a cool sport. She was in Corner Brook, Newfoundland. We know it's cool here. 4 Manitoba rinks, as I mentioned, have now qualified for playoff spots in the Scotties Tournament of Hearts. So not unexpected entirely, but really fabulous because anything can happen in sports. So to see all 4 of them go through is really great. We're going to get some more analysis of what's been happening with the play. That's coming up in morning sports after 7.
Black Life Untold Stories, a groundbreaking CBC documentary series, and we're inviting you to come watch it. Join CBC for a free screening and panel discussion Thursday at 7:30 p.m. at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community and click on the link to register. You must register to attend. Black Life Untold Stories, presented in partnership with the Black Life Impact Foundation.
I want to mention something that's coming up a little bit later in the program after 8 o'clock. APTN Investigates and CBC have partnered up on a piece of journalism, and today after 8 o'clock, we're going to learn more about when they looked at what is driving up sky-high food prices, particularly in Canada's north. We'll find out what they found. It's a new investigation. CBC's The Fifth Estate, specifically in partnership with APTN Investigates, looks at one company that is headquartered here in Winnipeg. So stay tuned. As we have that story for you coming up a little bit later in the show. In Winnipeg right now, it's minus 14. It's partly cloudy. There's light snow falling in Brandon where it's minus 13. And as I mentioned, Thompson is clear and cold. The cold spot, in fact, in the province right now at minus 37 degrees. Coming up, we have business news. Once again, Solomon Israel is with us this morning, filling out the week. He's going to talk about Lynx Air. the budget airline. They're shutting down in the face of financial challenges. So we'll find out more about what we know, and we'll also, of course, find out more about what that means for people who have bought tickets or had trips planned on Lynx Air. So stay tuned. That is coming up in our business news. We'll also talk to Solomon about Vice Media, which has stopped the presses as well and is going to lay off a significant number of employees. So those two stories coming up right after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. It was mild yesterday, 4 degrees in the afternoon. Today's a new day. -8 is our high in Winnipeg. It will be sunny, though. And tomorrow, we bounce up again to +8. A mental health advocate says cities need to move away from having police be the first responders to mental health and well-being calls. The renewed call comes after a 59-year-old man struggling with mental health issues was shot dead by Winnipeg police last week. Right now, police remain the first responders to these calls. The city's crisis response unit can only go in when called and after police say it's safe. Jennifer Chambers at the Empowerment Council, a mental health advocacy organization in Toronto, says the current police first model is not working.
Clearly, the police aren't the best people to be dealing with people in crisis, and it would be far less scary for people to have a community-based crisis worker show up than a police officer.
Police deal with nearly 21,000 mental health calls a year. The crisis response team was deployed 272 times last year. The councillor for Transcona wants the province to fine the city $1 billion for dumping raw sewage into the Red River. More than 225 million litres of sewage was discharged into the river over the past 2 weeks after 2 major sewer pipes failed. Russ Wyatt says the city isn't doing enough to maintain and upgrade sewer pipes.
Hopefully, with some sort of penalty on us, there should be something so that we take notice and that we change our management approach to how we manage our pipes and ensure that this never happens again.
Wyatt doesn't think the city should be spending millions on a new sewer injector, which he believes will benefit developers in southwest Winnipeg. He adds the smart water meter program shouldn't be a priority when pipes are failing and polluting the river and Lake Winnipeg. Now, Richard Grosshans is the lead scientist at the International Institute for Sustainable Development's water program. He says this sewage spill is concerning.
Untreated wastewater has a lot of stuff like nutrients, like phosphorus and nitrogen. There's other contaminants, there's metals, there's pharmaceuticals and stuff that's in there. So that's getting untreated. And, you know, when you have that raw sewage entering into a system like this, it's obviously not a good thing.
Grosjean says we won't know until summer how much of an impact the spill will have on Lake Winnipeg, but he says it could lead to an increase in algae blooms. Ukrainians in Manitoba will commemorate a solemn anniversary. Tomorrow marks 2 years since Russia invaded Ukraine. Since then, more than 20,000 Ukrainians have come to Manitoba. Yulia Okhrimenko got here in May 2022 with her 6-year-old son. She says it's been difficult starting over in a new country, but feels fortunate to be somewhere safe and supported.
I decided to be here because I saw the statistic, so it's a lot of Ukrainians here, and I decided to come because I understand that I have more and more support from Ukrainians here.
Even so, she says it has been really difficult. The Ukrainian-Canadian Congress of Manitoba is holding 3 events to commemorate the 2-year mark. It'll start with a screening of the Oscar-nominated documentary 20 Days in Mariupol tonight at 6:30 at the Franco-Manitoban Cultural Centre. A leader in Manitoba's Islamic community says she hopes politicians continue to be welcomed in local mosques. This week, a national Muslim organization said members of parliament should stay away unless they support Palestinians, call for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, and condemn the Israeli military's actions. Shahina Siddiqui at the Islamic Social Services Association says local mosques would never close their doors to anyone, although she understands where the frustration is coming from.
There is a lot of grief. There's trauma, there is frustration that Canada is not standing up to our ideals on human rights and justice, and that we are not hearing from our leaders what we need to hear.
Islam's holy month of Ramadan begins on March 10th. A Winnipeg woman wants her money back after her travel plans were disrupted by the shutdown of Lynx Air. The ultra-low-cost airline based out of Calgary is halting all operations on Monday. Cara Brereton Cook and her friends are supposed to return from Vancouver tomorrow, but that flight got canceled. The group was forced to buy one-way tickets that were more than twice the price of their original trip. Brereton Cook says it's not fair.
They had mentioned something to the effect of making sure their passengers are their top priority. Anybody that's sort of in the loop that they're ending or terminating services as of Monday, and everybody that has flights this coming weekend should be okay. Well, clearly that's not the case.
Lynx Air told customers to check with their credit card companies for refunds, but Brereton Cook says she shouldn't have to do that to get the compensation she deserves. Well, Manitoba will be well represented as playoffs get underway at the Scotties Tournament of Hearts in Calgary today. 4 of the 6 teams are from this province, led by 4-time defending champion Carrie Anerson and 6-time Scotties winner Jennifer Jones. The province's 2 other rinks are Winnipeg's Caitlin Laws and New Bothwell's Kate Cameron, who each came up with big wins yesterday to claim the final 2 playoff spots. You can find more news updated throughout your day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Abby Adeyemi with our regional forecast.
Good morning. Once again, partly cloudy in the city. We started with a chilly one this morning at minus 14. Today is going to be mainly sunny with the north wind becoming light later. We're going to see a high of minus 8. With the wind chill, it's going to feel like minus 23 this morning, so you need to put that into consideration. Good morning, Brandon. How are you doing today? You're seeing some blowing snow. You are at minus 13 for folks in Brandon. It will be mainly cloudy today with a chance of flurries, and then the clearing would happen in the afternoon with a northwest wind becoming light this morning, a high of minus 3. It's minus 34 in Thompson. You'll be going to a high of minus 14 later. There's a wind chill warning out there saying it feels like minus 38 this morning and a risk of frostbite. Drifting snow we're seeing in Churchill at minus 22, heading to a high of minus 17. With the wind factor, it's going to feel like minus 35 this morning. Also a risk of frostbite. Dauphin is at minus 15, Gimli is at minus 19, Steinbeck at minus 14, Moore is at minus 10, Winnipeg at minus 14.
All right, thanks very much, Abby.
You're welcome.
And Corey Funk, the commute and your run this morning, how's everything going?
Yeah, run this morning in was cold. My face hurt a little bit, and also that the sidewalks were slippery that I'm used to after that little bit of melt and then a freeze. So careful if you are hitting the sidewalks this morning. Might be a little more slippery than usual. The roads though are still pretty clear. Haven't heard anything on the commuter lines. Things like the commute is going pretty smoothly. But if it's not going smoothly for you, happy to hear about it on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
All right. Thank you very much, Corey.
Thank you.
If you're watching on YouTube this morning especially, we have a bit of a treat coming up for you. So we are right now loading some photos from our Facebook page for you to see. And that is because this half hour we're going to have a good chat about clothing that you either kept and why, or you told stories of pieces of clothing that you let go and you wish you still had. So this was prompted because yesterday I wore a jacket that I realized I've had for 10 years and I found a picture from 10 years ago wearing it and then yesterday. So I love these stories that are coming in about your pants and your boots. And so we'll share some of those this half hour. Right now, though, let's turn our attention at 6:38 a.m. to Solomon Israel, who's here from our national CBC Business Desk. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So, as I mentioned before the news, Canadian budget airline Lynx Air is shutting down in the face of financial challenges. What do we know right now?
Yeah, as you said, as we heard in the newscast there, Lynx is going to stop operating as of this coming Monday. This is an airline, an ultra low-cost airline, they call themselves, based in Calgary. They started flying April 2022, and they have now received an initial creditor protection order from a court in Alberta. Lynx gave a number of reasons for shutting down so suddenly. They put out a news release and they cited, quote, rising operating costs, high fuel prices, exchange rates, increasing airport charges, and a difficult economic and regulatory environment, unquote. I spent some time this morning, Marcy, looking through court filings in connection with this creditor protection order. Lynx has assets worth about $430 million as of the end of last year. Liabilities, however, were nearly $600 million. So they're sort of in the red there. This is a company with about 500 employees, mostly in Alberta's, and it's insolvent. They just can't pay what they're owed. That court filing shows that Lynx has defaulted on debts to several companies. They owe owe money to the company that does de-icing at the airport in Calgary. They owe money to Delta Airlines, which maintains the Lynx fleet of aircraft. And they owe money to the airport authorities in Montreal and at Toronto Pearson Airport. Lynx said that they've tried to cut costs, they've tried to find a way to sell or affect some kind of merger, but that just didn't happen. That wasn't enough to keep this airline flying. Lynx still does have flights scheduled to operate this weekend. It said it does plan to fly most of those flights, but for Lynx passengers with bookings for Monday and beyond, Lynx is saying that you should ask for a refund from your credit card company.
There's going to be consumer stories like crazy out of this, right? People that have
some
planned for
stranded
the
passengers
future.
for sure.
Yeah. Let's go to another story. Vice Media has also shut down, stopped the presses. They're going to lay off a significant number of employees. What's happening?
Yeah, not shutting down completely at this point, but the media company Vice Media is going to stop publishing digital content on its website, vice.com. So no more sort of daily news from Vice there. They do intend to lay off hundreds of workers. We don't know exactly how many. According to the New York Times, Vice has more than 900 employees. You might recall Vice filed for bankruptcy last year. They were acquired out of bankruptcy by a private equity firm. That deal valued the company at $350 million US, which sounds like a lot, but it's really a far cry from what Vice used to be worth. Back at its peak in 2017, Vice was valued at $5.7 billion US. Going forward, according to the Wall Street Journal this morning, Vice plans to focus on business-to-business media. They do own a production studio. They also own a creative agency. Vice also owns the website Refinery29. They're going to continue to operate that website because they're trying to sell that brand. Vice, of course, originally founded in Montreal. They since moved to New York.
And it has also been a big week for Canada's biggest grocery company, Loblaw. And before we look at markets, I understand investors are reaping the benefits there.
Indeed, shares of Loblaw companies hit an all-time high yesterday after Loblaw posted a strong quarterly earnings report. Loblaw owns about 2,500 stores across Canada under the Loblaw, Shoppers Drug Mart, Real Canadian Superstore, No Frills banners, and some others there, reporting $14.5 billion in revenue for the fourth quarter, up 3.7% from the same quarter a year before. Quarterly profit for common shareholders of Loblaw stock was $541 million. You might remember earlier this week, Loblaw announced it was going to build more than 40 new stores and renovate hundreds of other locations, so things look good for Loblaw. Paradoxically, though, that could be a bit of a PR problem because Canadians, of course, are not happy about inflation, especially at the grocery store. And so, if this company and other grocers, if they look like they're doing too well, people might rankle at that a little bit.
And we actually have a story on later that is about grocery prices as well. So that's involving APTN in the Fifth Estate. So people can hear that after 8. What are the markets telling us?
Asian markets closed mostly higher this morning. In Japan, markets are closed for the birthday of Emperor Naruhito, turning 64 years old. Happy birthday to him. European stocks moving a little bit higher this morning. Oil down by about $1 to $77.50 US. The price of gold gaining by about $3, $2,034 US per ounce. And the Canadian dollar not doing too much this morning, up just a little bit, 74.25 cents US.
Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Marcy. You too.
That is Solomon Israel, who's been filling in this week with business news. All right, let's have a little bit of fun next on the show. 6:43 a.m. As you're getting dressed for work this Friday morning, what are you putting on? And is it something that you've had in your life for a long time and you've kept it because you just love it? A lot of us have pieces of clothing like that, whether they're sentimental or they're handed down or you just kept it. It's a good quality piece of clothing. And sometimes if you change in size, I know my weight goes up and down, you might have saved it and then you bring it out and you fit it again. There's many reasons clothing sticks around in our lives. So we're going to show some photos because we've got some photos that we can share on our YouTube channel. Morning, everybody. Because people were writing into us. So Corey, our question was around a jacket I wore yesterday.
Right.
And I realized, I wore this 10 years ago when I moderated my first CBC debate ever.
Aww.
Remember how nervous I was? And I wanted to feel confident. So this was a piece of clothing that made me feel confident.
When you put it on, did you feel that same feeling?
Yeah, I did actually.
Oh.
I did actually, yeah. At any rate, I asked listeners about this. So let's get through some of these photos. First of all, Sandy Buse Fraser. So Sandy sent us this photo on Facebook when we asked about her clothing. It's her. She looks really young. She's got a bag slung around her body, and she's got her sweatshirt on and these kind of cream-colored plaid pants. And here's what she wrote. Back in the mid-90s, I thrifted a pair of yellow, black, and white plaid seersucker pants, and they must have belonged to an old man in his 70s. I love those things, she says. I wore them all through high school. They absolutely don't fit now, but I have them. They're in a tickle trunk in the basement, and my teenage son was really close to wearing them on Halloween this year. I love that.
The tickle trunk is key. That's great. That's a great move.
Can you see Eleanor Burkowski's orange pants there, Corey?
They are pants. I don't know how they are. There's a lot of pant there.
Like if you took, okay, let's put these up here to have a look. So they're pink and orange, and they basically look like she's wearing pink shoes. Look at those.
Wow.
It looks like she's wearing a skirt, and then you just sort of made one extra seam and made it into pant legs. She writes to us, these are from the 1970s. Here's my orange plaid palazzo pantsuit. Oh, I want to see the jacket. Not to wear anymore. I'm no longer, she writes, a size 5 to 7, but to show my kids. So I love that, showing the kids. Have you pulled anything out yet? Cal's too little, I guess, to appreciate
Too little,
you.
but we are kind of slowly creating a little tickle trunk for when he's older.
Oh, that's cute. I like that.
Yeah.
Something different now. Let's move from pants. This is one of those stories I mentioned. We asked, what don't you have anymore that you might miss? Mark Schillinger wrote into us. It's his Air Force jacket. So he did send us a photo of this, a trench coat. So he writes, and you can see it there on YouTube, I had this U.S. Air Force trench coat in junior high. I bought it at Army Surplus years ago. Remember Army Surplus on Portage Ave?
Just right across from
Yeah.
here.
I used to love that store. Mark says, my parents sold it in a garage sale without telling me.
Oh,
yeah,
devastating.
Painful. I wish I still had that gem. We've all been there, Mark, right? And I'm sure your parents feel terrible about it too. So
Yep.
I'm glad you have a photo. I'm glad you're sharing it. A couple more photos to get through. This one's a sweater. It's cream colored. It's got the the red around the top, kind of classic Farrell pattern.
Very Nordic après ski vibes.
Yeah. Well, Peter Wolgamut is the après ski guy. He says, my mom knitted this 40 years ago, and I still wear it regularly, and I get compliments on it. And my wife still has her wedding dress from our wedding coming up on 34 years.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah, I have mine too. Yeah, I got it all packaged and sealed, and I don't know why I did that, but I got it somewhere in the back of the
hers
closet.
too, but it's still mud stains on the bottom from the dance floor that got all muddied up.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's a memory, though. I'm glad it's still muddy.
Yeah.
She'll like
it's
that in
kinda
the
fun.
future.
Yeah.
Okay, couple more here, YouTubers here. You ready? The last three. Let's put the shoes up. Lynn Robidoux Berndorfer, not clothing. Here's my first pair of hiking boots, bought in 1979.
Oh, yeah.
She writes, for some reason, I just can't part with them. Next photo is pants. People keeping the pants. Phoebe Mann, people might know as a local taiko drummer, artist in residence over at St. Norbert. She writes, sister, these were tailor-made in Hong Kong.
Ooh.
When I was 13 years old, she says. That's over 40 years ago, LOL, she says. Still wear them, mostly as costumes for performing.
They look so good.
Those are cool pants.
I like them a lot.
Yeah, they've got the beautiful patterning on them, and they look very flowy and light. She could rock those pants. I'm going to look for them at performances in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
And finally, we end with something sentimental. There's a blanket that got sent in to us. I love ending with this because we said clothing, but sometimes it's not in its original form. Final word to Heather Sadaway, who said, it's not exactly clothing anymore, but when my dad, who wore plaid shirts almost exclusively, passed away in 2020, I told my mom I wanted to make a quilt out of his shirts, and she made it for me. And needless to say, I will have it forever.
Oh, that's so great.
Isn't that beautiful?
So
She made
beautiful.
a beautiful quilt as well, Heather, for you. I love that. Love that story. Those are the ones that came with photos. So lovely that y'all shared those photos for us to pass along to our viewers on YouTube to watch this morning. But also there's a lot of stories and comments, and maybe this has sparked you thinking about it. So if you want to add a comment for us, you can. And that is on our CBC Manitoba, my Facebook page, Marcy Marcusa, which acts as a show page when we're on the air. So check it out and add your story about clothes that you've kept along the way, or maybe the ones that got away.
You have lots of questions about your own life and this really complex world around you. I'm Sarocha Coelho. I'm the host of the new live call-in show, Just Asking. I take your questions about what's in the news or your finances, health, even your relationships, and then throw them to an expert. Our show launches on February 24th, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, live from coast to coast to coast. Just Asking. Let's figure it out together.
It is 11 minutes to 7 o'clock on 89.3 FM. Thanks for being with us this Friday morning on CBC. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team here at the show. Well, next, let's return to something that has been making news now for, over 2 weeks. This sewage leak that started February 7th in the city and has now dumped over 220 million litres of untreated sewage into the Red River. It has slowed dramatically after crews installed a second pump on a bypass system. And that is according to the City of Winnipeg updates this week. But there was a development yesterday at City Hall. Transcona City Councillor Russ Wyatt, you might have read this online, he wants to see the city held accountable for this spill. So yesterday he put forward this motion calling on the province to fine the city for $4 for every litre spilled. If you're quick with math, it adds up to $913 million. The city's entire budget for 2023 was $1.3 billion. So just some perspective on that number. CBC's Cameron McLean had a full conversation with Russ Wyatt about why he introduced this motion.
So I'm saying that until the City of Winnipeg starts to actually actively get its house in order with regards to the sewage spills, we have to be accountable. Right now, we're not. We allow the sewage to continue to flow. And frankly, we have these breaks that happen, and they say that it's accidental, that it wasn't expected. We have to get our house in order. We can't allow this to continue. This is a cost not only to the citizens of Winnipeg in terms of the impact on the environment, but a cost to the entire province. So
it is $1 billion that you're asking the province to fine the city. Is that wise, do you think?
Well, I'm saying that there has to be a penalty. I realize that it's not going to be that amount, but there should be a penalty, right? And we should have a penalty on the city that would actually have an impact on them, on us, because right now nothing is changing, right? We continue to have these breaks, and the breaks aren't being resolved. Now we have a break that the sewage continues to spill. And, you know, are we going to have another one at the rate we are going at? Yeah, probably. So, no, the reality is this is the request in the motion, but will it be that significant? No, but it has to be significant for the city to change its ways and start investing and preventing these breaks. There has to be an impact. It has to be something that takes notice, right? I think the province right now, we're being told that the Minister of the Environment is monitoring the situation, which is great, but I think there should be a fine on the city for something like this. We should be the city should not have the ability to allow these breaks to continue to happen as they are happening. I'm hoping it sends a signal to the province. Yeah, I'd like to send a signal to the province that we can't continue as business as usual in the city, because that's really what's happening today. The business as usual effect is allowing us to simply to senior administrators in the Water and Waste Department say, well, this is just another accidental, unexpected breakage, right? An unexpected happening. We didn't intend for this, of course, and I'm sure the city didn't intend for it, but clearly we know how many of these crossings we have of the river. We know how many pumps and pipes and valves we have near the river. Let's just make sure they're all in working order so that this doesn't happen again. And right now, that's not the case. So
the mayor pointed out that the problems with the pipes were discovered as part of routine maintenance and inspections that the city was doing. Why do you feel that the city is negligent in this case?
Look, we have a bunch of engineers that work for the Water and Waste Department. They know the condition of these existing pipes and facilities. If there is any doubt in their mind, right, that a valve or a pipe may not be able to last, that there's a potential for a break and therefore a discharge into a river, I think it's incumbent on the Water and Waste Department to act upon that. That doesn't seem to be happening right now, right? We see lots of reports that come forward to council where we need to do something immediately. For example, recently we had a report that said we have to fix the parkade underneath the library. We have to do this immediately. Well, there's an example where the administration, this was not requested by council, this is the administration coming forward, right? Saying that this is an infrastructure matter that we got to deal with immediately. Why aren't they coming forward with these? Why aren't they made a priority? I think it's almost become an expectation of doing business, right? That these breaks are going to happen, and in a sense, it's become part of the culture that they've accepted it. That we're going to have sewage main breaks from pipes or valves or what have you, and that's okay, apparently. You know, that's the mentality right now of the culture I'm trying to explain, and that's unfortunate. We got to change that.
That is Transcona City Councillor Russ Wyatt in conversation with CBC's Cam McLean about the sewage leak. Crews have installed a second pump now and a bypass system, but Wyatt is saying he wants the city accountable for the spill. So he brought forward this motion. He called on the province to fine the city $4 for every litre spilled. The motion, by the way, will be debated at the Water and Waste Committee next month. Meantime, you're asking for more journalism on this from us. And you're right to ask for it. Jason McLean wrote in, echoing a bit of what Russ Wyatt said there. How is it just accepted that the city can dump 200 million litres of raw sewage into the Red? This is a real story. They have zero plans in place for situations like this one. And he asked, does any other city in North America need to do this when there are problems? And that is where I'm saying you're begging more journalism from us that we should look into. You're not the only one asking for that, for us to look at this moving forward in a bigger way. Paul Weiss looking at past mayors and saying maybe we're still playing catch up after years of keeping property tax rates low and spending very little on infrastructure. Tim Dietrich writing in, are other cities self-sustaining and self-sufficient in infrastructure expenditure? So echoing what was asked by Jason on our thread. And also Tim writing, if not, why do we have a tax structure that prevents cities from being self-sufficient? So a lot of people asking, feeling like they're paying taxes, how do we get to this point, and asking those important questions. But finally, Mel Zabrocki writing in just with a perspective point, saying, I don't live there, but if it helps, remember all First Nations have had boil water regulations for years. So it just speaks to wider issues also with infrastructure that are happening all over the country. And right now in Winnipeg, people being affected by our old pipes. So where do we go from here and how are we going to afford it? All questions to be answered as our coverage continues. So as we mentioned, that motion will be debated at the Water and Waste Committee next month. If you want to read what we've done on the story so far, please go to our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba. It is now 3 minutes to 7 o'clock, and Heather Wells joins us with a news update this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Ukrainians in Manitoba will commemorate a solemn anniversary tomorrow, 2 years since Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Since then, more than 20,000 Ukrainians have come to Manitoba. Yulia Okhromenko got to Winnipeg in May of 2022 with her 6-year-old son. She says although she is supported here, it's still difficult, and she dreams of her family in Ukraine. A Manitoba Islamic leader wants politicians to start paying attention to the grief her community is feeling. Shahina Siddiqui at the Islamic Social Services Association says she understands why Canadian Muslim leaders penned an open letter asking MPs to stay out of mosques until they're ready to call for a ceasefire in Gaza. We'll hear more from her in our next local news at 7:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, let's look at this forecast. It's the coldest start to the week right now, minus 14 in Winnipeg. Our temperature hasn't been that low all week at this time. So minus 14, partly cloudy. In the forecast for the day, a high of minus 8 is what we're expecting, and it's going to be mainly sunny today in Winnipeg. Our wind chill, though, is going to make it feel like minus 23 this morning. If you're looking ahead, it's going to be clear tonight, low minus 12, and looking through the weekend, mainly sunshine tomorrow, but gusty winds. Although it says tomorrow's high is 8 degrees above zero. So that will be very, very mild for this time of year. So we'll see what happens over the weekend. On the morning commute, whether you're walking or on your bike or on the bus you're driving, let us know how it's going out there. So far, so good, so early. 788-3093 is where you can reach us with any updates on the commute. After 7 o'clock, as Heather's been mentioning, this weekend, tomorrow specifically, does mark 2 years since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the widespread invasion. We're going to talk to 2 women about their experiences in Winnipeg. They came here from Ukraine, and we're going to hear more about how their life has been here and what they'll be thinking about tomorrow. In addition, those warmer temperatures I mentioned mean that a lot of people have been enjoying the outdoors. So CBC's Jim Agapito was at a dog park yesterday talking to people about how they're going to spend this warm weekend and how they've been spending the warm winter overall. So a bit of fun there for Friday. And then at 10 to 8 this morning, we will have more on the director of a Toronto-based mental health and addictions advocacy group who is weighing in. She's going to speak to us about why she says police should not be the ones responding to mental health calls. So we'll hear more about what's been developing in Toronto, and we'll look at the things that have been happening here in our city.
On The Current.
The Biodome, a pure, self-contained environment.
It is one heck of a unique opportunity. NASA is looking for volunteers to live in a Mars simulator for a year, but past experience has shown it's not always easy to find people who are a good match. Life in tight quarters coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Peter Cowan in St. John's. A former employee of the Northwest Company is speaking out. It's the main grocery chain in many remote Indigenous communities. And one person who used to work at the Iqaluit store says the company is hiking prices, not just to cover rising costs, but also to boost profits. The Fifth Estate host Stephen D'Souza has the story.
So we're seeing the original cost of the olive oil on the bottom, the $16.49.
Alexis Dodd worked at the Northmart store in Iqaluit for almost 2 years, starting in 2021. Over that time, she took hundreds of photos to document price increases she thought were questionable. She says that olive oil went up $6 in the span of 6 weeks.
It didn't make sense, and I was looking at the cost. I could see how much they were spending on each item.
The Northwest Company's stores are often the only option in many remote northern communities. Dodd says for Iqaluit and many communities, non-perishables come in via ship once or twice a year. So she questions how some prices could fluctuate so dramatically.
So it makes you wonder why that cost has gone up so significantly.
The company also receives millions from a federal subsidy meant to make healthy food in the north more affordable.
And the subsidy dollars are paid directly to retailers.
University of Toronto researcher Tracy Galloway has studied the Nutrition North subsidy. She says her research found for every dollar of subsidy, companies were only passing 67 cents.
We call it leakage, but it appears that the retailer may be keeping the extra money.
The Northwest Company disputes that, saying it passes along 100% of the subsidy, and says transportation is just one aspect of its costs, which it points out are much higher than southern grocers. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, Toronto.
Who's Minding the Store airs tonight on the Fifth Estate. Watch it on CBC or CBC Gem at 9 o'clock, 9:30 in Newfoundland, or you can catch it on YouTube. It'll be posted after 1 o'clock Eastern Time. Calgary-based Lynx Air is suspending operations. The low-cost airline has filed for creditor protection, citing rising costs that include fuel and airport charges, and what it calls a difficult economic and regulatory environment. The company will stop flying as of Monday. That news has left some passengers in the lurch. Cara Brereton-Cook was supposed to fly from Vancouver to Winnipeg.
Supposed to go home on Saturday, so we actually just booked a flight through Air Canada, thankfully, to get home. But we're all out now about $630, where this Lynx flight cost us about $275 return.
Federal Transportation Minister Pablo Rodriguez says he expects Lynx Air will assist passengers with getting return flights and refunds. The company has been operating for less than 2 years. Western countries are prepared to level a wave of new sanctions against Russia. It's a show of support for Ukraine ahead of tomorrow, when the world marks 2 years since Russia launched its full-scale invasion. The war is still grinding on, but as Abby Kuavasan reports, it's showing no signs of slowing down.
At this boxing club in Gdansk, Ukrainian teenagers who fled 2 years ago say they miss home. Andrei arrived in Poland with his mother weeks after Russia's wider-scale invasion. His father stayed behind to fight. Andrei says his city, Kharkiv, is on fire. The optimism around Ukraine's war effort has dissipated in recent months. The Ukrainian counteroffensive failed. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky pleading still for more military aid, but a $60 billion aid package is stalled in Congress, and concern that a Donald Trump presidency could mean an end to aid. Analysts say Europe would have to at least double its aid to make up that shortfall. Then there's the Russian president, prepared to let the war continue despite sanctions. Andrei Kolesnikov is with Carnegie Russia Eurasia Center.
I don't think that he wants to some kind of a takeover of Poland or Baltic states or Western Europe. He needs Ukraine, but this is not enough for him. This world must accept his rules, must accept his vision of the world.
Western countries say they'll stand by Ukraine for as long as it takes, but critics say they haven't done whatever it takes to ensure Kyiv isn't forced to a negotiating table with a Vladimir Putin they do not trust. Abby Kuodas in CBC News, Berlin.
Renewed efforts in Paris today to release more hostages taken by Hamas. A similar attempt failed 2 weeks ago when Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called some of Hamas's demands delusional. Israel is now willing to come to the table for negotiations that also include the U.S., Qatar, and Egypt. Journalist Tony Waterman is in Paris. Tony, what's different for Israel this time?
Well, one thing that has brought Israel back to the negotiating table is reliable evidence that Israeli hostages have received the medication that the government has sent to them in Gaza. There are also indications from Israeli and U.S. officials that Hamas is softening some of its demands. And one of the biggest sticking points has been around the number of Palestinian prisoners Hamas wants released and who those people will be. So these talks that are happening are about closing those remaining gaps. There is really this race to get this deal done, get a ceasefire in place, hostages released, and humanitarian aid flowing before the holy month of Ramadan, which starts in March, and before a massive ground offensive in Rafah can kick off.
I want to ask you about a ceasefire. It's always been controversial. We saw a Security Council resolution was vetoed by the U.S. earlier this week. What are we likely to hear about this today?
Well, the ultimate goal for the mediators and really for many governments around the world at this point is a permanent ceasefire, but they may very well have to settle for another temporary pause in fighting. That is what these talks right now are working on. Israel says that an immediate ceasefire will give Hamas time to regroup, but ultimately the goal is a lasting peace. And for France, that is a two-state solution, which we know is a non-starter for Israel at the moment. So even if a ceasefire can be clinched in the coming days or weeks, this is really just the first step for this process.
Tony, thanks so much for getting us up to speed.
Thanks for having me.
Journalist Tony Waterman in Paris. An Australian police officer is charged with murder in the deaths of two Sydney men. Jesse Bird, a former TV host, and his flight attendant partner Luke Davies had been missing for nearly a week. Danny Doherty is with the New South Wales Police Homicide Squad.
A 28-year-old man facing these charges was in a relationship with Jesse some time ago, which finished a couple of months ago, and so that'll be a obvious line of inquiry in relation to a domestic style incident.
The victims' bodies have not yet been found, but investigators say they found some of their blood-soaked possessions in a bin. That led them to the police officer's home, where they found a single bullet and a large amount of blood. Police say the bullet matched that of the suspect's gun. And finally, Canada is still trying to fix the auto theft crisis. The federal government held a national summit on the issue earlier this month. In Ontario and Quebec, most stolen vehicles are exported overseas by organized groups and rarely seen again. But as Alexander Silverman tells us, in New Brunswick, it's a different kind of story.
Just right here, we got 3 cars that have been stolen.
Doug Short walks around his Moncton impounds lot, pointing out one recovered vehicle after another. A sedan with a smashed rear window and a pair of pickup trucks, all stolen, then found in the city.
They just keep coming in and...
Short has owned 5 Star Towing for 18 years. He says he's getting a growing number of calls to recover vehicles that were stolen and later abandoned.
Since I've started towing, I've seen it over triple.
That trend is being reported in New Brunswick and across Canada. A new report released this month by Equité Association, an insurance lobby group, found more than 100,000 vehicles were stolen across the country last year. And while the bulk of stolen vehicles in Canada are exported overseas, the majority in the Atlantic provinces are recovered. The report says thieves in New Brunswick are stealing vehicles to commit other crimes and burning them to try to eliminate evidence.
This is not a victimless crime.
Brian Gast is Equité's Vice President of Investigative Services. He says the proceeds of vehicle theft is funding criminal operations, including drug and firearm trafficking.
So they're serious offenses, and it's harming our communities.
Equité Association is calling for auto manufacturers, law enforcement, and government to crack down on theft. On Thursday, the feds announced $15 million to help police recover stolen vehicles. It expects to release a national action plan in the coming weeks. Alexander Silberman, CBC News, Moncton.
And that's the latest national and international news from World Report. For news anytime, go to cbcnews.ca. I'm Peter Cowan in St. John's.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is CBC. You're on Information Radio this morning, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, or on that CBC Listen app or YouTube. Thanks for being with us. Man, it's cold outside. We're not used to it. We've had such mild weather, but this morning is the coldest one we've had in some weeks. It's minus 14 in Winnipeg. We shouldn't complain. It's minus 37 degrees up in Thompson. We'll see if that is improved at all when Abby joins us with the full forecast in a moment. This hour on the program, tomorrow is 2 years, as you've been hearing, since the Russian full-scale invasion of Ukraine. We're going to talk to two women about their experiences coming to Winnipeg from Ukraine. We'll hear how they met. We'll also hear how they're marking tomorrow, what they're going to be thinking about as they're in this country and not in their country. Also this hour on the show, warmer temperatures are expected this weekend. We sent CBC's Jim Agapito to a dog park to find out how people are having fun with it and also how they're expecting to spend the weekend. And not just warmer temperatures, like tomorrow's going to be strangely warm if the forecast holds. So stay tuned. We'll have a bit of that for you too. Right now, Heather Malls is live in our news department this morning and she joins us with headlines.
Good morning. Well, the councillor for Transcona wants the province to fine the city of Winnipeg $1 billion for dumping raw sewage into the Red River. More than 225 million litres of sewage was discharged into the river over the past 2 weeks after two major sewer pipes failed. Russ Wyatt says the city isn't doing enough to maintain and upgrade sewer pipes. After recent police shootings in Winnipeg, an advocate says it should be crisis workers and not police who respond to mental health or wellness checks. Right now, police remain the first responders to these calls. The city's crisis response unit can only go when called and after police say it's safe. We're going to hear from Jennifer Chambers. She's at the Empowerment Council, which is in Toronto. We'll hear from her in our next local news at 7:30.
All right. Thanks very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
Now, Abby, I know we have to talk about today's cold. But because I kind of teased people, what does the forecast high for tomorrow say?
Tomorrow's high is 8.
Like not minus 8.
Not
people.
minus, it just jumps
8
to
degrees.
plus 8. I'll just say plus 8.
Yeah, we'll see. So not so much this morning. It's cold today.
Yeah, it's a chilly stat. You need to brace yourself with that. With the current temperature at minus 15 degrees, we're going to be seeing mainly sunny skies today. And as we move through the day, the skies will definitely sunny. The sunny part of the day would stay with us. But you should put into consideration there's a wind that will be coming lightly, and we'll see a high of minus 8 today. And the chill is going to make it feel bone chill in minus 23 this morning. So you're setting out for your day. You're starting the day. You need to bundle up, okay? And like I said, we're going to see a high of minus 8 today. Tonight, it's going to be mainly clear skies. For those that would want to see like the full moon tonight, you'll be in a show. But also, it's cold tonight. Winnipeg right now, we are at minus 15.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
Corey Funk, you have had like an easy job because the commute's been pretty quiet the last few days.
It's been really quiet the last few days.
I don't think your mic's working.
Oh, there we go.
It is.
There I am. It's been really quiet the last few days. It's been good. I wish I took Abby's advice device and bundled up on my run to work this morning because I get caught off guard every single time. My face hurts. So be careful out there if you're going outside. Sidewalks are a little slippery as well. I will tell you that because that freeze thaw. But if you see something else going on out there on the roads, on the highways, bike lanes, sidewalks, give me a call. I'll let folks know what you're seeing out there. That number to call, 204-788-3093.
Commotion.
Time right now is 7:14, and as we mentioned, we begin this morning talking about an anniversary that's coming up tomorrow. Tomorrow marks 2 years since Russia's wide-scale invasion of Ukraine. According to the Manitoba chapter of the Ukrainian Canadian Congress, our province has welcomed over 20,000 Ukrainians since the start of the war. And today we have two women in studio, both of whom have unique experiences coming from Ukraine. Anna Belyaga is here with us. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Mila Shkota is with us as well. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
I can't help but noticing what you're wearing, Anna. It's beautiful. It's
thanks so much. It's just a dress which my mom sent me from Ukraine. Actually, it was something like a sign for me to celebrate 2 years since Russia attacked Ukraine. Yes, so I wear this dress not just like regularly, but like to remind myself and people around me about this situation in Ukraine.
So this is poignant to what we're talking about. It's about the anniversary tomorrow.
Yeah, sure.
It's black and knit. It's got poppies, of course, down the side, which flowers are so important in Ukraine. They all have different meaning, right? The different colors. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
so your mother is still there?
Yeah, my mom is still there, and my dad and sister, actually, because sister have a husband who couldn't leave Ukraine, and my father as well, because he's still 55 years old. And as we know, from 18 to 60, it's not allowed for male to leave Ukraine. Yes.
What's that like for you? How are you holding up here?
You know, actually, I can say that I'm lucky here, and Manitoba was really friendly for me because when I came here, first of all, I found a job through internet, LinkedIn. So when I came here, I already have a job, and for me it was much easier to start my life here. But of course, I came here alone, so it was somehow a little difficult, too much scary, you know, oh my God, it's new country, so far from my home, and how it's supposed to be here, everything, yeah. But thanks God, and very grateful for government, community, all programs here for Ukrainian and newcomers that I never feel even one day lonely or alone or helpless, you know, because here was a lot of people who was ready to help me anytime. So
that's
really,
lovely.
Yeah.
I'm glad you found that here.
I want to thank you again, yes, and again for all Manitoba peoples and for all Winnipeg who was support me a lot.
Now, Mila, you might actually thank Anna, I understand, because she's part of, you guys knew each other, right? So how did you meet Anna?
We met here 1 year ago. Anna published a vacancy in one of the Ukrainian group in social media. I applied, and thanks to Anna, I found out my first job in Canada.
That's how
we made friends. So now we communicate and we see each other, and we made friends already.
She was part of your journey here.
Yes,
finding a place in work.
for sure.
What has it been like for you here in Winnipeg? Anna was talking about what it was like for her to come here. What was it like for you?
You know, the decision to leave Ukraine wasn't an easy decision. However, when fragments of Russian missiles fell into several houses near us and destroyed people's homes, we decided to leave in order to avoid the threat of our lives. And I can say that it is not my first visit to Canada because my husband studied here in the University of Manitoba 8 years ago, and I came to visit him that period. So we knew Winnipeg, we knew Manitoba, we knew everything about the winter, so it wasn't maybe a big deal. However, it was not easy for sure, but I can say that I, from the first days when I just arrived to Canada, I was impressed by the kindness and support of Ukrainians, and I would like to join Anna in saying thank you to Canadian government for QED program and Manitoba government as well as the city government of Winnipeg. And I was so amazed at how big Ukrainian community in Manitoba is. And,
it's one of the largest in the country.
Yes, and how many Canadian volunteers united to help Ukrainians and to help Ukraine in general. So I would like to say that we are so grateful, and on behalf of all Ukrainians, and I think we thanks to everyone who support us.
Who are you here with, and who are you missing the most that's still in Ukraine?
I'm here with my husband and my daughter. She's 5. She goes to kindergarten and daycare. The day before yesterday, my sister and my niece came to me.
Wow, what was that like?
Came to me for 2 weeks, and the good news is the day before yesterday we received a confirmation from IRCC for my mother's Canadian visa.
I understand your mother was hesitant to leave Ukraine.
Yes, she's still there, but we received the confirmation about her visa, so hopefully she will be able to come to me this summer.
How hard will it be for your mother to leave Ukraine, do you think?
Unfortunately, she didn't want to go anywhere. So for sure, we communicate very often, and every time I read the news feeds about Russian attacks, missiles attacks, I text her, "Mommy, how are you? Where are you? Go to safety place," and we are keeping in touch.
What will you be thinking about tomorrow?
For us, for Ukrainians, the war started not only 2 years ago. It started 10 years ago when the Crimea was annexed and when the Revolution of Dignity took place.
And when Putin said he was going to take over all of Ukraine, I mean, he told everybody he was going to do this. So, yes, you're very right to point out this is 2014 in Crimea. That was the first step.
Yes. So we mark 2 years of resistance to Russia's invasions of Ukraine, and we marked 10 years since the invasion of Eastern Donbass and Crimea, as well as the Revolution of Dignity took place. And thanks to Ukrainian-Canadian Congress, Manitoba Provincial Council, they does a big work with uniting Ukrainians and organizing events. I would like to invite everyone who support Ukraine and Ukrainians to join us on the upcoming events today, and we have an opportunity to view the Oscar-nominated documentary 20 Days in Mariupol.
Yeah, we were talking about it on the show yesterday. So tonight there's that viewing. Tomorrow there's a prayer service at 11 o'clock at St. Vlad and Olga. And then on Sunday, Canadian Museum for Human Rights. So you'll obviously be taking part in all of these things.
For sure. I will be a Ukrainian MC on Sunday's rally. Sunday's meeting.
You were mentioning, Anna, you're talking a little bit about your life here. You came alone, but you're not alone now.
Yeah, that's right.
Did you meet your husband here?
Yeah.
Is that him in the control room?
Yeah.
Hey,
he's in control room.
Come on in, take some photos of us, please.
Yeah.
Did you think that? How did that happen? And you guys are connected from Ukraine. You learned, right?
It's really some miracle because we was lived in one area in Ukraine, one city, one area, but never met each other in Ukraine.
Where did you live?
It's in Kiev.
In Kiev?
Yes. So there have some street called Balzaka. We lived there, but never met each other.
How close together? Like, were you blocks apart, a same neighborhood?
Yeah, it's very same. It's like even same street. And we never met each other until coming here, yes. So, yeah, it was just suddenly surprised because I found here my husband, my love, and my destiny, and father of my future baby. Yeah, we have baby shower today.
Oh my gosh! So you're having a baby shower today?
Yeah.
Wearing a dress. I'm going to get all weepy here. Wearing a dress that your mother sent you to think of Ukraine, the 2 years. So you have a lot of things that it's a special day for you for lots of different reasons.
A lot. My life changed completely here, really completely, because a lot of change, and I can say it's good change, and I really hope that a lot of people also found here like good change in their lives. Of course, sometimes for some newcomers, it's not very easy, especially for people who doesn't speak English. But we try a lot actually. How we met with Mila. I work as employment specialist. It's Company Express employment professional. So we try to help a lot of newcomers, especially right now in this difficult time, to find their first job here in Canada. Yes, like even sometimes for people who doesn't speak English, but we try to place all people like to find themselves a little bit, to give them little support.
How, while you've made a new start and your family is growing here in Canada, how difficult will it be that your baby's not being born in Ukraine?
You know, actually, because I cannot say that I'm very amazing, huge patriot that I right now fighting for Ukraine. I mean, like some medical sister or something, but I really love my country. Yes, sometimes I feel a little sad. You know, it's not even because I will start my family here in Canada, but because my father still can see my child, you know, he cannot like be on my baby shower, yes, like this kind of stuff, like some celebration we still, I think Mila also feels that sometimes, yes, like our birthday or some days we cannot celebrate together with family, like Christmas time, you know, something like that. So of course I don't feel myself strangers right now here. I feel like my family here, but yes, sometimes I start to feel this little sadness because family is far.
You both shared so much about your lives. Thank you very much for being with CBC today. And this weekend, I wish you peace and love and have a wonderful baby shower today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and when your mother comes here this year, I wish that will go all so well and peaceful for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All the best.
Thank you.
Дякую. Thank you.
Slava Ukraini.
Slava Ukraini.
Anna Belyaga and Mila Shkota both came to Winnipeg from Ukraine in 2022. So the 2-year anniversary of the Russian invasion, wide-scale invasion, is tomorrow, and there are events across Winnipeg. I love it. The Ukrainians are inviting me to the baby shower. I'm Ukrainian, I get it. I'm guessing there'll be tons and tons of food and lots of sandwiches and lots of merriment. Oh, there's pierogies, Anna's saying off mic here. I love that. Enticing me to come. Right now, I got to move on to morning sports. Bye, you guys. Thanks for coming into the studio. 7:25 is the time right now. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and Scott Reguera is here. Hi, Scott.
What kind of pierogies?
Yeah, I didn't get to ask. Now they're in the control room. Any pierogi will do.
Oh, yeah.
Any pierogi will do.
Oh, I'm hungry now. Okay.
Let's start with curling here. The playoff matchups are set at the Tournament of Hearts in Calgary, and man, is Manitoba represented.
Yeah, big time. Today we're going to see Jennifer Jones, 6-time Scotties winner, and in her final tournament, at least in the four-player form of the game, taking on the host province rookie who has been so good, Selena Sturmey. She sits at 7-1, does Sturmey, and was looking ahead to the match.
It feels amazing to know that we're going into the playoffs ranked number 1. Yesterday there was a bunch of school kids here just screaming and yelling, and although it is a little bit of a distraction, it means the world to us to know that everybody's here supporting us and cheering on Team Alberta.
Sturmey's match with Jones goes at 1 this afternoon Central Time. Whoever prevails will take on the winner of today's other match, which we'll see Gimli's Carrie Anderson take on Ontario's Rachel Homan. I mean, these are the superstars of the sport. And of the 4 that I just mentioned, whoever comes out on top through their games goes directly through to Sunday's final and will be a favorite. But there are others in contention, including, as you mentioned, a big Manitoba contingent. Kate Cameron got in as a number 3 seed into the playoffs, and so did Caitlin Laws. So, if you were to bet on a Manitoban winning the championship again this year, you probably would have pretty good odds.
And if you're a bandwagon fan, like if you're not following all this all the time, this is the weekend, Manitoba.
Oh, yeah.
This is the weekend. All right, to hockey now. The Jets are in Chicago tonight.
Yeah, taking on a team that's near the bottom of the standings in Chicago. The Jets, meanwhile, they've been near the bottom of the standings when it comes to offense. They've been quite poor of late, although their last game they broke out to some degree with a 6-3 victory against Minnesota. So they'll hope for more of the same tonight in Chicago. Adam Lowry had this to say.
I think it's critical playing well in your division. I know with the added teams now, we don't have as many divisional games as we used to, but you're still playing most of these teams 4 times, and those are big swings. You can come down to being the difference and squeaking into the playoffs or not. So, we've been ready for the most part playing against divisional opponents, and we're really looking forward to the game tomorrow night.
So 7:30 puck drop from Chicago. Meanwhile, interesting article in The Athletic this morning featuring the chairman of the Jets, Mark Chipman, who talks at length about if the attendance is going to continue the way it has, averaging just over 13,000. Chipman said, quote unquote, this place we find ourselves in right now, it's not going to work over the long haul. It just isn't. So well worth a read.
And well worth some more investigation. We've been looking into the possibility of that being an issue and a story for a long time, looking at the attendance rates of the Jets and post-pandemic, and especially in what's been happening. So certainly people will want to lean into that piece of journalism on The Athletic. Let's finish with baseball and soccer. How did Canada's first Gold Cup match go last night?
Well, I think as expected against a country ranked 91 spots behind them in the FIFA pecking order. 6-0 victory for the Canadians in that game. Meantime, in baseball... Bruce Coburn, Marcy, is saying what a number of major leaguers are thinking right now. That is because MLB's newly designed uniforms are see-through. At least the pants, designed by Nike and made by Fanatics. The pants employ a thinner material than in past years. It's about breathability during the hot summer months, but there probably shouldn't be this much visibility. In a photo taken of Dodgers star Shohei Ohtani modeling the new unis, his white pants are so translucent, his tucked-in jersey is clear to the eye, as are his undergarments. Union head Tony Clark says players' concerns over the new unis are, quote-unquote, universal.
I guess so. Yeah. Wow. Can you ever see his undergarments? Sorry, I just Google imaged that. Oh, that's so. You think someone would have caught that?
I told you. I'm not making this up.
All right. Thank you, Scott. Have a great weekend.
You too.
We'll see if they change that. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 7:30. It is chilly out there. It's minus 15 in downtown Winnipeg. It's going to be sunny today, much cooler than yesterday, a high of minus 8 today, but then tomorrow we pop up to 8. So a bit of a roller coaster over the coming days as far as temperature goes. Mental health advocates say cities need to move away from a police-first centered approach when responding to mental health and well-being calls. Instead, they say more faith needs to be put in crisis workers to be the primary responders. In the last few months, 6 people have died following encounters with Winnipeg police, including the shooting death of a 59-year-old last week who was struggling with mental health issues. Jennifer Chambers is the executive director at the Empowerment Council. It's a mental health advocacy organization in Toronto. Chambers says police aren't the best option to deal with people in crisis.
People shouldn't die because they're having a crisis. I think that when people are in crisis, they should have crisis workers. It's not a complicated concept. How many people have to die in crisis before it's obvious that we have to do something differently?
Winnipeg's Alternative Response to Citizens in Crisis, or ARC, only provides secondary responses once police say the situation is safe. Transcona councillor Russ Wyatt thinks the province should slap the city with $1 billion fine for dumping raw sewage into the Red River. More than 225 million litres of sewage has been discharged into the river over the past 2 weeks. 2 major sewer pipes failed. Wyatt says the city's not doing enough to maintain and upgrade those sewer pipes. He says there should be consequences.
I'm hoping that will maybe be the bucket of cold water that we need to say that this is enough. We have to change the culture. This type of doing business is not acceptable, and we have to stop dumping raw sewage into our lake.
Now, Eric Rader of the Wilderness Committee says the sewage spill is going to have a major impact on Lake Winnipeg.
The biological piece of it and the E. coli and the nutrients that are getting into the river that we don't need in our river and are going to wash downstream, that's a big problem. And there's chemicals associated with things that go down the drain, chemicals that aren't really regulated, aren't food safe, aren't good for our water, and that stuff is going straight in as well.
Rader says Manitobans must recognize it's going to cost more money to protect our waterways. He says we can't keep pushing the problem to the next generation. And he says the federal government should have stricter rules about protecting water. Tomorrow marks 2 years since Russia invaded Ukraine. In Winnipeg, Ukrainians who have fled the war are remembering that day. Yulia Okhromenko left the country when the Russian military approached her home near Kyiv. She took cover with her son, who is now 6, below their apartment building. The two arrived in Winnipeg in May of 2022, and she is grateful for the support but says it hasn't been easy being away from home.
I usually don't show people what I feel inside my soul, but it's hard. It's really hard. A few days ago, I saw a dream that I'm at my house and I saw my family.
Okhromenko says being surrounded by so many other Ukrainians in Winnipeg and finding a job as a florist has made the situation better. More than 20,000 Ukrainians have come to Manitoba since the war started. A Manitoba Islamic leader wants politicians to start paying attention to the grief her community is facing. Shahina Siddiqui at the Islamic Social Services Association says she understands why Canadian Muslim leaders penned an open letter asking MPs to stay out of mosques until they're ready to call for a ceasefire in Gaza and denounce the actions of the Israeli military.
I can see the breaking point of my community. I'm counseling people who are in really grieving and not feeling validated for their grief. They find themselves on the defensive, and you have an entire community, an entire people being dehumanized, and the message we are getting is no one cares.
With the holy month of Ramadan just over 2 weeks away, Siddiqui says she doubts any local mosques will close their doors to anyone. Some Winnipeggers say they're frustrated after they were caught by the fallout of Lynx Air shutting down. Cara Brereton Cook and her 6 friends were in Vancouver for a bachelorette party and to see Madonna live. Now all of them are out hundreds of dollars after the airline shutdown forced them to rebook their flights home on another airline. Brereton Cook says she wants her money back.
We're just mortified because, we all planned out our finances months ahead of time to make sure we had this trip. We're just now all just frantic. Some of the flights were like $1,200 home. We can't rent a vehicle and drive it home. You can't jump on a train. So how do people get home?
The Calgary-based ultra-low-cost airline announced yesterday it had filed for creditor protection and is shutting down all operations on Monday. The company says it has faced multiple challenges, including rising costs. You can find more on all these stories and stay in step with the news throughout the day by going to our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather Wells.
You're welcome.
Now let's look at the regional forecast here. Starting in Winnipeg, it's partly cloudy with the current temperature at minus 15 degrees. Anticipate a mainly sunny day. Today the skies are going to be sunny throughout the day with light north winds, and the high will reach minus 8. The morning chill is going to feel like minus 23 this morning. So if you're one of those that would be doing the transition from one bus to another and exposing at the bus stop, you might want to prepare for that. Over to Brandon now. Blowing snow you're seeing over there with a current temperature at minus 13 degrees. It's going to be cloudy later on, and then the chance of flurries will crawl in, clearing this afternoon, and then northeast winds will become light. We're seeing a high of minus 3. Heading to Thompson, it's clear with a current temperature at minus 34 degrees. Expect sunny day today with increasing cloudiness around the noon period. We should be seeing a high of minus 14 for folks in Thompson, but you need to take into consideration that it's a chilly morning and the wind chill is going to feel like minus 38 this morning, so you might want to watch out for the risk of frostbite. In Churchill, we have drifting snow this morning. Current temperature at minus 28 degrees. Expect sunny skies, but the cloudiness will definitely crawl in the afternoon. Anticipate a high of minus 17. Also be cautious because the wind chill is going to feel like minus 38, which means the risk of frostbite will happen in minutes. In Dauphin, it's currently minus 16. Expect mainly cloudy day with a chance of flurries this morning. A high of minus 4 for you, and the wind chill feels like minus 21 this morning. Now to Gimli and the Interlake region is seeing an overcast current temperature right now at minus 20 degrees. Mainly sunny day for you today. A high of minus 8, and also the wind chill at minus 25. In Steinbach, you're currently at minus 14. Maurice and the rest of the Pembina Valley region is currently at minus 11. It's going to be mainly sunny with a high of minus 6. And also there's a wind chill there for you this morning at -20. But right now, Winnipeg, we are at -15.
All right. Thank you, Abby.
You're welcome.
Corey, the commute update?
Real quiet out there, but if you do see something, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
Well, as Abby's been alluding to, today is cold, but tomorrow, if the forecast holds, I know we don't want to get too excited, but I mean, tomorrow's high is 8 degrees. So it's going to be today's high -8. That means 16 degrees warmer than it is today. And of course, we're just coming out of a whole bunch of warm weather. The winter's been very, very mild. Yes, it's cause for concern, but it also for some is a cause to get out there. That means that dog owners have been celebrating. They've already been out and about for strolls, maybe even longer strolls. So CBC's Jim Agapito hit up an off-leash park. He was over at Bonnycastle Park in Winnipeg yesterday to talk to some pet owners about how they're making use of the current warm weather and what they're planning for the weekend.
Dean Weiss. And what's your dog's name? Tootie. How old's Tootie? 13. Warmer weather coming up. How excited are you for that and to be able to be outside with your dog?
It's nice, although my dog is a Shepherd Husky cross, so she's comfortable at -40, unlike a lot of other dogs here.
Jennifer Weber Borden. My dog's name is Maya. She's a husky and she's about to be 2 years old. I'm definitely enjoying it more, but for her, it doesn't matter. She likes the cold. As long as she gets to run around, she's fine.
Hi, my name is Jade Hepner. Her name's Mika. She is 7. She'll be 8 next month, actually. At least we guess. She is what I call a northern mutt. So we don't know what she is, but, she's a rescue. So honestly, we're here all year round, but it is really nice for the weather to start warming up. We're looking forward to that.
Gabriel Schuster. My dog's Cherry. She turned 6 in November, so she's 6 in a bit now. She's a German Shepherd. Yeah, I'm really excited. It's going to be pretty wet outside, so she's going to get pretty dirty, but we're so used to that by now. Yeah, we go to the dog park every day pretty much, even in the coldest days of the winter, but obviously we can stay there longer when it's warmer outside.
If you were to give some of the quirks, some of the character of your dog, what would they be?
Very friendly, cuddly, laid back, and don't mess with me.
What do you mean?
If the other younger dogs try to get with aggressive play with her, she'll snap at them.
Oh boy, and what kind of predicament does that put you into?
Not a bad one. It's just like one growl and snap, and then they tend to back off.
She definitely is outgoing once she gets to know you, but her biggest thing is she loves to scare new dogs. She'll run up to them and just whoa, and keep running. Nothing's happened.
How does that happen when you're at the dog park like this?
She'll see them, and if they're unsuspecting, not paying attention, she just runs up very quietly behind them, barks at them, and then continues on like she wasn't even there.
Okay, so at the park, her personality would very much be almost a mom dog. She has some puppies here. This is the community backyard. There's puppies here she's seen since they were really little, first coming to the dog park. And a lot of other dogs too, she'll see them kind of get a little too much when they're playing, and she's right in there break it up, and yeah, it's really cute. But she also she has her best friend that's here today as well, and they just go absolutely nuts when they play, and it's just pure excitement and joy, because that, I'm not too sure what's going on in her mind, but I just feel like she's oh my God, my friend, yeah, I feel like she's just super happy.
And what joy does that give you?
Oh my God, seeing my little fur baby happy. I mean, how could I not be happy? Even when it's -40, we're still here at the dog park. Obviously, I have a whole bunch more layers on, but just seeing her happy at the dog park, and even when it's cold out, I can't help but feel happy as well.
So cute. I'm a little envious. I have bulldogs. To them, -1 is cold. But a lot of dog owners are enjoying the weather right now. This weekend, even my bullies might want to go out. Tomorrow's high forecast is 8 degrees. And looking to Monday, I know it's a couple days out, but if Monday's forecast holds, the high is 12. That was the CBC's Jim Agapito out talking to dog owners at Bonnycastle Park in Winnipeg.
Your neighborhood, your community, your country, your world, your news. Your news that matters. News that belongs to you. Your World Tonight every night, 7 days a week on CBC Radio 1. On demand on the CBC Listen app and everywhere you get your podcasts.
7:43 a.m. on your Friday morning. Thank you for making time for our team today. You're listening to CBC's Information Radio, 89.3 FM on the app or on YouTube. And currently, unlike the warm weekend we're looking ahead to and expecting, currently in Winnipeg it is cold. It's minus 14. It's actually the coldest morning of the week. After 8 o'clock on the program, we're going to have a close look at an investigation that was done with the APTN and CBC's Fifth Estate. They're looking at what's driving sky-high prices.
There's, again, not enough eyes. Nobody knows what's going on. I call it the wild, wild west because anything goes pretty much, and they take advantage of that nobody's really looking.
Brittany Guillot from APTN Investigates will join us with more on who that is, weighing in on the story about sky-high grocery prices specifically. As mentioned, it was done in partnership with the CBC's Fifth Estate, so we'll have the full report for you coming up after 8 o'clock on the program. You might have heard part of it on World Report today. In a couple of minutes as well, I want to mention we have a full interview coming up for you this half hour. We're going to talk to the director of a Toronto-based mental health and addictions advocacy group. She says police should not be the ones responding to mental health calls. And so we'll have that interview just ahead, and we'll hear also about what's changed in Toronto around police response. Of course, last week there was a big town hall last weekend here in Winnipeg looking at police responding to different communities. Lots of concerns. And the death of that 59-year-old man who was shot and killed by Winnipeg police just last week as well. Before we get to that interview, a little bit of music this morning from Jay Wood, who is, of course, from Winnipeg. This is from his 2023 EP. Kind of feels like Friday. The EP is called Grow On. This tune's called Sweet. So sweet. That is Jay Wood out of Winnipeg on your Friday morning. It's kind of nice, mellow music. Bundle up out there. It's minus 14. Light snow falling in Brandon, minus 13. And I should mention Thompson. While we're all talking about how cold it feels in Winnipeg, Thompson's at minus 37 degrees this morning, so very cold. It's the real stuff there. 12 minutes to 8 o'clock now on 89.3. And up next on the program, we turn our attention to police matters. Last week, a 59-year-old man was shot and killed by Winnipeg police after officers responded to his home for a mental health call. Police say he was agitated and barricaded himself in the house. Police also say that the man had a crowbar and then used a fire extinguisher against officers. Manitoba's police watchdog is investigating. Now, we've been talking a great deal about police calls and response right now in our community. Maybe on Sunday you attended a busy town hall that was held on policing specifically of Black communities last weekend. At that town hall, Police Chief Danny Smythe was there. He said he wants to expand a pilot, pairing clinicians with plainclothes officers to respond to mental crises. But with the shortages affecting the healthcare systems, there are not enough clinicians available. So that was Danny Smythe speaking over the weekend. Next on the show, we turn to a mental health advocate in Toronto. Some say that these cases could be avoided if more well-being calls were diverted to non-police-led crisis response teams. Jennifer Chambers is with us via Zoom. Jennifer is the executive director of the Empowerment Council, which is a Toronto-based mental health advocacy organization. Thank you for being with us today.
Pleasure.
So why do you think that police should not be the first people on scene during a mental health emergency call?
Well, there's two aspects of it. One is preventing the call from escalating to that crisis point in the first place. So for that, there need to be sufficient community resources that people actually want to use, not so much the ones that people have to be forced to use, so that people can prevent reaching a crisis point. And there's also a number of things that enter into that to do with social determinants of health, like access to affordable housing and a reasonable income, things that often drive people into crisis. And then there needs to be a response that people are not frightened of. So a police response can escalate a situation because what seems to be aggression in people can often be rooted in fear and the desire to keep themselves safe, the desire to keep other people at a distance, especially because most people in crisis have a history of trauma. So in that way, it's much more likely to end up with a calm situation if someone can appear who is welcome to the person who's in crisis. Now, that often means a community-based crisis worker.
No, I didn't mean to interject there. I want to explore more about what you do in Toronto and also get your response to some of the things that our police chief has said here about, where they're trying to move to. But I do want to ask, really early in this interview, what about situations where violence and weapons may be involved? Because there may be listeners who are thinking, how do we do this? Shouldn't it be police officers who respond to those types of calls? What's your thinking around that?
Yes, the reality is it's still going to be very important to train police officers in de-escalation because there are calls that only the police are going to go on. No mental health service is going to send their worker into a call with a weapon involved. However, they can attend calls or advise police over communications on how to interact with the person and connect with them, perhaps to offer community resources to them that they might not have been aware of that can help them get out of whatever situation is driving the crisis.
How are calls like this handled in cities like yours in Toronto? Have you made some headway or not?
We have, sadly, often as a result of repeated deaths and recommendations that are made at coroner's inquests, which are inquiries into deaths for the purpose of preventing them in the future. The Toronto now has quite a well-developed community-based crisis service. They did an excellent job in the city of consulting communities, especially those most affected, people with lived experience of mental health issues, the Black community, the Indigenous community. So now there are community-based, consent-based crisis services that people actually want to use, because when it's only 911, the people who call about crises are often not the person themselves, because there often is not services available that people like and want to use. And this often means services that are not coercive. So people can be afraid of ending up in a mental health facility as much as they're afraid of ending up in a jail. So having an option of a non-coercive community-based crisis team that has workers that reflect the community served is an alternative that can really go a long way to preventing people ending up in the worst situations with police.
So that is different from, you heard our police chief, Danny Smythe, talking about expanding a pilot that we ran here called the ARC program that pairs plainclothes officers with mental health workers to respond to nonviolent crisis situation. So that's different, right? Because you're talking about the first point of call is going to that team of people in Toronto.
The community-based crisis team in Toronto can be reached directly, or they can be reached by being diverted from 911. There's also, just before I answer the rest of your question, somebody who's located in the 911 communication center who's a crisis worker who can take the call right on the spot sometimes. But yes, there also has been a history in Toronto of what's called mobile crisis intervention team, which is a pairing of a police officer and a hospital-based nurse that go on calls once the police have already been to the call and determined that it's safe enough for people to attend. And once in a while, if it's really obvious ahead of time, they'll just send the team directly there. If it's obvious that it's a safe enough call, the team will just attend directly.
What makes it obvious? Can I interject there for a moment? What makes it obvious that it's a safe enough call beyond the absence of weapons, which you already highlighted?
I think primarily it is beyond the absence of weapons, which includes a weapon that someone is planning to use upon themselves. So I think that enters into that's the main criteria for determining whether it's a police only call, and also whether someone is going to need to be taken against their will to a mental health facility. They might feel that if there's going to be a lot of opposition to that they don't want a clinician on the scene. However, alternatively, sometimes if people talk to an individual, they might decide that they will go and just get assessed and see what the options are available to them at the hospital. It really depends on how people feel about going to the hospital.
So we've asked a lot of questions here about training of police to sort of have them, even more trained. There is some training. I don't want to suggest there's none, but you haven't talked about that. You're talking about the separate community responses. Where does training of the officers fit into the picture? Are you also looking at increased training in Toronto to respond to these types of calls?
Yes, and there actually is more extensive training for people who are part of the MCIT for officers. They get 5 days of training instead of sort of 1 day a year. Yes, it's still very important that officers get trained in how to approach a situation calmly, how to de-escalate it, which basically means reducing the person's fear. So to say, let's take some time, let me get to know you, or what can I do to help you, what's happening? Maybe we can figure out the situation together. Things that will help the person see the officer more as a possible aid rather than a possible threat.
Please continue.
And even if they are taking someone into custody, we also suggest that they give the person as much choice as they can in the situation, as much of a sense of control as possible, so they don't feel as helpless and endangered as they might.
I'm wondering about the numbers in Toronto, because you heard the police chief here saying there aren't enough clinicians available to move forward with a pilot pairing that he'd like to expand. What's his language? Expand, yes. How many people does it take to make your program work in Toronto? Clinicians?
Well, the thing about the community-based crisis team is that it's not clinicians. It's people who are community workers. So you don't have to draw on, say, the very hard-pressed nursing profession.
Got it, because you're not pairing them with police. It's a different stream.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how many people are involved in the efforts?
I'm not good with numbers. I know that because the project is just about to go citywide. It had been a pilot project in 4 areas initially. There is going to be a real push to hire, and there is going to be somewhat of a shortage. And part of that is going to be addressed through extensive training for the crisis workers. But there's also options, like there's a place in the US, Poughkeepsie, where they have a crisis team, a crisis stabilization center, a peer respite center, a court diversion program, all of which are run by peers. So people who've had personal experience of being in the mental health system and can relate to people sort of on that level where they can say that I've been where you are and I've figured my way through, and I'm going to help you to do that as well.
Looks like there's more for us to explore maybe in Poughkeepsie. Thank you very much for talking to us from your Toronto perspective this morning. I appreciate your time today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
That is Jennifer Chambers via Zoom this morning with us, the Executive Director of Empowerment Council. She joined us this morning, as mentioned, from Toronto. And if you want to read the story that prompted us looking deeper into this morning, you can read online at cbc.ca/Manitoba. It is now 2 minutes to 8 o'clock. Heather Wells is back with Developing News this Friday morning.
Good morning. Well, after recent police shootings in Winnipeg, an advocate says it should be crisis workers, not police, responding to mental health or wellness checks. Right now, police remain the first responders to these calls. The city's crisis response unit can only go in when called and after police say it's safe. We're going to hear from an advocate in Toronto. And the councillor for Transcona wants the province to fine the city $1 billion for dumping raw sewage into the Red River. More than 225 million litres of sewage has been discharged into the river over the past 2 weeks after 2 major sewer pipes failed. Russ Wyatt says the city is not doing enough to maintain and upgrade those sewer pipes. So we'll hear more from him coming up in our next news at 8:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
It's partly cloudy, -14. We'll head to a high of -8. The commute's been pretty good, 788-3093 if that changes for you. And after 8 o'clock, we're going to hear that joint investigation between APTN and the Fifth Estate about some grocery prices in the north.
On Cue with Tom Power.
For over 30 years, Marlon Wayans had a lot of success in comedy. In Living Color, Scary Movie, White Chicks, but all character. Now Marlon is standing on stage by himself as himself, and he'll be here to tell you how that feels.
I still know I have so much more to do and so much further I'm gonna go.
That's coming up on Cue, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdelmahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
It is one heck of a unique opportunity. NASA is looking for volunteers to live in a Mars simulator for a year, but past experience has shown it's not always easy to find people who are a good match. Life in tight quarters coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Peter Cowan in St. John's. Tomorrow, just before 5 a.m. in Kiev, marks the 2 years since Russia began its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Today, Ukraine is still managing to hold on.
Першої партії літаків конкретні терміни постачання необхідне.
President Vladimir Zelensky says his country needs F-16 fighter jets in the sky. Ukrainian pilots are being trained to fly the jets right now. But Russia's army is strong, and as Murray Brewster tells us, it's regenerating itself at a pace that Western military leaders were not expecting.
They are sparing no effort in their reconstitution.
General Chris Cavoli is NATO's supreme commander, reflecting on Russia's attempts to rebuild its shattered army.
They are devoting an enormous fraction of their budget to the military over the coming years.
And the figures are sobering. Moscow will spend 6% of its gross domestic product on the military this year, a big jump from 2023. But Admiral Rob Bauer, the head of NATO's military committee, says much of that is refurbishing Cold War-era stocks of tanks and equipment.
They are rebuilding, but most of the time it's older types they're rebuilding, or they're taking types out of capabilities or equipment out of stock.
Russia's defense ministry wants to increase the size of the military by 30% to 1.5 million personnel. While they haven't achieved that, Russia's recruitment is running at about 85% of its targets, bringing in roughly 10,000 fresh troops per month. You can see that in Ukraine, where Russia began 2023 with 360,000 troops in the country and ended the year with 470,000. Victoria Nuland, the U.S. Undersecretary of State, says Russian President Vladimir Putin is also getting help from China, Iran, and North Korea.
This is massively destabilizing.
Last May, U.S. intelligence estimated it would take a decade for Russia to recover from the war. That estimate has been revised by the Germans, who are now saying between 5 and 8 years. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Ottawa.
As the 2-year anniversary of the Ukraine war approaches, the U.S. is imposing hundreds of new sanctions against Russia. In part, they'll be aimed at undermining the Kremlin's war machine. Journalist Benji Heyer is in Washington. Benji, what action is the Biden administration announcing?
Peter, good morning. The administration calls these sanctions major, massive, crushing, the biggest since Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine 2 years ago. In a statement early this morning, President Joe Biden says the US and Western partners must ensure Russia and its President Vladimir Putin, quote, pay the price for his death and destruction. Now, the vast majority of these measures are designed to further impede Russia's war effort, in part by imposing restrictions to close existing gaps in the sanctions regime that Russia's been able to evade so far. That could include focusing on nations funding Russia's economy and energy sector, the likes of global superpowers, India and China.
The White House is also wanting to punish Russia for the death of the opposition leader, Alexei Navalny. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, included in these wide-ranging sanctions are a set targeting individuals connected to Navalny's imprisonment, mirroring the sort of measures announced recently by European countries aimed at people working at the penal colony where Navalny was held. President Joe Biden has, in fact, for days hinted at such possible consequences. He blamed his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, for the death of the imprisoned opposition leader. And these sanctions, the White House says, will help ensure Putin pays an even steeper price for his repression at home. Navalny, of course, a prominent Putin critic, locked up on charges which many Western states view as politically motivated.
Benji, thanks so much for this.
Peter, thank you.
Journalist Benji Heyer in Washington. The UN is accusing both sides in Sudan's civil war of committing war crimes. The violence erupted 10 months ago when Sudan's regular army clashed with the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. In today's report, the UN Human Rights Office says each group has indiscriminately attacked civilian sites, including hospitals, markets, and camps for displaced people. The office says it has reviewed credible, though unconfirmed video, appearing to show soldiers parading with decapitated heads of RSF supporters. The conflict has killed thousands of people and displaced 8 million others. The controversy over the ArriveCan app is getting a whole lot more complicated and conspiratorial. A parliamentary committee is looking into how costs swelled to $60 million. Yesterday, the committee heard from 2 public servants who've been suspended without pay for their role in the project. They say they're being used as scapegoats. Janice McGregor is in our parliamentary bureau. Janice, what did these public servants tell the committee?
This testimony was a defiant mix of defense and offense. The 2 men have lawyered up and gone to court to fight the internal investigation. They say they haven't been told what they're even accused of. Here's Cameron McDonald.
I'm concerned that we're not getting a fair fight and that information is being withheld that would allow us to defend ourselves from these egregious allegations.
They also say they don't know what the Mounties are probing. Here's Antonio Utano.
We're not sure if we're even involved in the RCMP investigation. We haven't been contacted by the RCMP in their investigation.
And they wanted MPs to understand that, in fact, they were not the contracting authorities that signed off as the budgets ballooned on ArriveCan. Their bosses apparently made that call. The testimony was a blistering attack on the people above them. They said the CBSA's president, Aaron O'Gorman, lied to the committee to scapegoat them. And as for their former boss, who's now the government's chief technology officer,
I think it's pretty clear that tens of thousands of emails were deleted by Min Doan.
If the Auditor General didn't get the right inputs, they said she couldn't reach the right outputs. CBSA confirmed this week that 40 of its servers are curiously down for maintenance. And they also lashed out at Bottler, the whistleblowing firm that triggered this investigation, a firm they say apparently asked for a contract after making its allegations. Its founders, they vaguely suggested, may have political ties, but they didn't substantiate this or another claim that Doan's been faking health issues to avoid accountability. An MP openly challenged whether they're entirely reliable when they say stuff like that. And we're now left with a lot of divergent and contradictory information, making it hard to say who's telling the truth here.
So, Janice, what happens next?
Well, the committee has unanimously called for the Public Sector Integrity Commissioner to investigate the allegations of wrongdoing on top of all the other probes already underway. And this committee's not done yet. Earlier this week, it voted to force contractors to appear as witnesses.
Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Thanks, Janice.
You're welcome.
Calgary-based Lynx Air is suspending operations. The low-cost airline has filed for creditor protection, citing rising costs that include fuel and airport charges and what it calls a difficult economic and regulatory environment. The company will stop flying as of Monday. That news has left some passengers in the lurch. Cara Brereton-Cook was supposed to fly from Vancouver to Winnipeg.
Supposed to go home on Saturday, so we actually just booked a flight through Air Canada, thankfully, to get home. But we're all out now about $630, where this Lynx flight cost us about $275 return.
Federal Transportation Minister Pablo Rodriguez says he expects Lynx Air will assist passengers with getting return flights and refunds. The company has been operating for less than 2 years. And finally, students from across the Northwest Territories are in Inuvik for the annual Northern Games and Dene Games Summit. It's a test of strength, but cultural teachings from local elders are also an important part of the Games. The CBC's Des Loreen has the story.
On your mark, get set, go!
Performing feats of strength. 82 people compete in sports like snowshoe racing, triple jump, and the 1-foot high kick.
That's it, give her some energy, right on.
In the 1-foot high kick, the athlete jumps up, kicks a hanging target, often made of sealskin or caribou hide, with 1 foot, and has to land on the same foot. The game is a test of agility. Tuktoyaktuk High School student Chase Nugasuk got to break his personal best.
My biggest highlight is when I kicked 7-6 yesterday.
This is the 10th year the school district has hosted the Northern and Dene Games Summit.
It's awesome. Good to see. Good to be a part of it.
Inuvialuit elder Jerry Kassoon has been a part of the games since his youth.
The traditional games that we've been taught when we were kids, have it in the education system, in an education facility.
Alyssa Irish Memagana of Uluhaktuk was excited to send her gold medal results back home to her family.
The highlight of this Arctic sports is 1 foot, hand games, and probably just having fun.
Kassoon appreciates the youth effort to connect to their culture.
Oh, we've had a pretty good week. I think we've had a few injuries along the way, but the kids are out here, they're trying, they're doing their best. Kids don't give up, man.
Some of these athletes will be competing again in March in Alaska at the Arctic Winter Games. Des Loreen, CBC News, Inuvik, Northwest Territories.
And that's the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Peter Cowan. Yeah,
it's Friday, everyone, and we've got a big clear sky out there and a cold start up north for sure. In Winnipeg, it's also brisk. Thanks for joining us on Information Radio. 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or on YouTube. And if you missed anything, by the way, you can always go back on YouTube and also watch it, which is good news for you, because an hour ago we had just a delightful conversation with 2 Ukrainians who came to Winnipeg in 2022, and they were sharing with us how they're going to mark the 2nd anniversary of the wide-scale invasion of the war. But they were also sharing some joy, one of them finding her husband here in Winnipeg, and their story was very unlikely. They lived on the same street in Ukraine and never met, and they met here. You want to go back and watch it. Let's get to things that are coming up this half hour, though. We're going to have a deep look at what's driving up sky-high food prices, particularly in Canada's north. We'll have more on the CBC's Fifth Estate in partnership with APTN Investigates investigation. They have questions about whether one company in particular, which has its head office here in Winnipeg, is unfairly profiting. So we're going to hear more when we talk to one of the reporters and researchers from APTN, so stay tuned. Right now, we go to Heather Wells with headlines from CBC. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, just days after a family of 5 were buried in Carman, the man charged in their killings heads to court today. Ryan Manitobans faces 5 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of his common-law partner, their 3 children, and his partner's niece. Police found their bodies earlier this month at multiple crime scenes in and around Carman. We'll hear more about that. And Ukrainians in Manitoba commemorate a solemn anniversary tomorrow, 2 years since Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Since then, more than 20,000 Ukrainians have come to Manitoba. We're going to hear from one of them about her experience and about how she still has so much grief, she says, in her soul. So we'll hear about that in our next local news at 8:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
It is right now 8:12, and There's Abby Adiyemi, always smiling on the other side of the glass. How you doing this morning?
I'm pretty good. Looking out and I see the reflection of the sun on the side of the buildings. Yep, it's going to be sunny, and it's sunny across board the province, but it will be chilly also, a lot colder than yesterday. In the city of Winnipeg, we actually reached a high of 4 degrees yesterday afternoon, but this morning we're going to be seeing that more like a low of -8 today. Currently we are at -15 degrees under sunny skies. I can tell you the sun is already making its appearance. Expect this mainly sunny conditions today with a high of -8 as I mentioned earlier. However, with that north wind, it's going to make it feel like -23 this morning. For all of you outside, for folks outside, I'm sure you're feeling that already, but it will improve and drop down to feel like -13 during your lunch break. Tonight will be clear, but you need to watch out for the shift in the wind because it's going to be 30 gusts into 50, and then the temperatures will drop to -12. And good news for tomorrow. Tomorrow will definitely bring mainly sunny skies, sunshine, and we'll see a high of 8.
I'm going to put out some of my patio chairs.
I think you should.
I know it's too early probably. Are you? Corey, that's Corey wearing shorts?
Question for you.
Yep.
Can I start my spring cleaning now?
I say yeah.
Okay, I'm doing it.
Start at any time.
Taking away the Christmas tree now.
Do you still have your tree up?
I'm done.
I love that.
It's probably red and very crispy.
Hang on a minute. Is that our... Oh, no, we don't still have the tree in the studio. It might just be in the hall, though.
It is.
I think we were so lazy, we just slid it out into the hallway, so guests walk by a tree.
It's not a real tree, so it's not a fire hazard.
Corey Funk is here talking about wearing shorts tomorrow. And today, anything on the commute to report?
You know what? It is not one single call on the commuter line this morning, which is A-okay with me. If you are hitting the sidewalks, though, it's very slippery because that freeze-thaw kind of combo, so look out for that. But if you do see something going on out there on the roads, highways, bike lanes, sidewalks, would love to hear from you. Give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, as we've been mentioning, this week on the Fifth Estate on CBC, the show is looking at who is profiting from higher food prices. It is an investigation co-produced with APTN Investigates, and it takes us to Canada's north, where high food prices are a fact of life. But there are questions about whether one company in particular is unfairly profiting. The Northwest Company's corporate head office is here, based in Winnipeg. It operates, as you likely know, a number of stores, 29 of them in northern Manitoba alone, like the Northern Store and Northmart. Now, an ex-employee of the Northwest Company is speaking out about price increases that she found hard to justify. Brittany Guillot from APTN Investigates joins us with the story.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
So for the listeners' benefit, I mean, they may have heard the name, but can you tell us more about the Northwest Company?
Right. Yeah. Many Canadians in the South, of course, know Loblaws, Metro, Sobeys, all of those big dominant chains. And as we know, their CEOs were called before parliamentary committees to talk about food inflation. But curiously, a billion-dollar grocery company never took part in those hearings. And that is the Northwest Company. It's a dominant grocer in Canada's north. Some may have heard of the Northern, Northmart. Its brands are all over northern Canada, and it even stretches from Alaska to the Caribbean. The company traces its roots back to the 18th century, and in many remote Indigenous communities, it's the only option. The company has operations around the world, but more than half of its business is done right here in Canada. And like other big grocers, it's seen its profits go up in the period of high inflation after the pandemic. But like the other grocers, it says its costs are also going up.
Now, as I alluded in the intro, you spoke with a former employee who questions whether the company is unfairly raising prices. Can you share what she said?
Mm-hmm. Her name is Alexis Dodd, and she worked for Northmart in Iqaluit for almost 2 years between 2021 and 2023. And so part of her job was to change prices in the morning. Head office would send the prices into the store. As she would change the price labels on the shelves, she says she started to notice a worrying trend. And in Alexis's words, she says she noticed there was consistent price increases of almost double. And she started mentioning that to head office. And head office would fight back a little bit because it's not her job to question the pricing. And so at this point, she started taking photos because she wanted to document what she was seeing.
And that's a quote, right, from your guest. They said it's not her job to question the pricing, end quote, right?
Exactly,
yeah.
Yes.
Can you give us some examples of what she saw with the prices?
Mm-hmm. She gave us several examples, and one of them was olive oil. So on November 9th, 2022, a standard size bottle was priced at $16.49. And just a few weeks later, on December 31st, the same year, the price had gone up almost $6 to $22 for a bottle. So instant oatmeal was another example. It was priced at $8.49 on November 22nd. And by mid-December, it doubled to $16.79. Another example that she gave us was cut wax beans. And so a standard size can was priced at $5.49 in September 22nd. And by December 12th, it was $11.39 for beans. So these are some big price increases. And she points out that this was over a relatively short period of time.
What is her concern about the price increases?
She believes that kind of fluctuation in such a short amount of time shouldn't happen. She points out that in places like Iqaluit, they get non-perishable items via ship. Those deliveries come once or twice a year. She says that, quote, transportation costs for those sea lift items shouldn't fluctuate and affect price. And so unlike things that come in via air, which is more expensive, so she questions whether the company is taking advantage of inflation to increase prices and is unfairly profiting off those increased prices.
What does the company say? What was the response?
Yeah, so the company disputes all of that. It said when it runs out of some products, they have to fly in that product by the more expensive option via air. She explains that the jump in cost for the Northwest Company explains that the jump in cost for the olive oil mentioned earlier is by the expensive air. It says shipping costs make up only a portion of prices seen on the store shelf. Operating in the North, of course, comes with unique costs and challenges that Southern grocers don't have. And so that includes higher electricity, utility rates, higher rent, higher costs of maintenance and repairs, along with the high costs of fuel and transportation. The Northwest Company says that they are trying to offset those costs. And in 2023, they say they shipped 1.1 million more pounds of products via winter road and sea lift to better insulate customers from higher air cargo costs.
But there are also questions about the subsidies that the company gets from the federal government. Can you tell us more about that?
Mm-hmm. The company is one of a number of northern retailers that qualify for the Nutrition North retail subsidy. So it's a subsidy paid annually directly to the retailers. It appears that the retailer may be keeping that extra money.
And how does the company respond to that?
The subsidy does go to a number of northern retailers, but because of its size, a lot of focus is placed on the Northwest Company. And so the Northwest Company told us that Galloway's study, quote, did not accurately take into account all factors which impact pricing, and that a recent government audit found, quote, funding provided was spent for the intended purposes.
I know people will be reading more online about your story, and thank you so much for bringing it to the radio with us this morning, Brittany. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Brittany Guillot is the host of APTN Investigates. She is based here in Winnipeg. Who's Minding the Store airs tonight on the Fifth Estate on CBC. This journalism done in partnership between the Fifth Estate and APTN Investigates. You can check it out at 9 o'clock on CBC and CBC Gem. It was, as mentioned, a co-production. The Northwest Company's corporate head office is here in Winnipeg.
Hi, I'm Pia Chattopadhyay, your host of the Sunday Magazine. Every weekend, we help you make sense of our changing world through conversations that cut deep and mine the ideas driving society, politics, and cultures today, with plenty of music, wonder, and fun along the way. So come along and join me for the Sunday Magazine Sunday mornings at 9:30 in Newfoundland and on the CBC Listen app.
8:23 a.m. is the time right now. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and usually I don't talk a lot about what's coming up sort of like next week, but I know that next week I'm going to be interviewing Bill Nye the Science Guy. And I just think that's super fun and cool. So if that's resonating with you, why don't you throw a question on the listener line and maybe I can try to get it into an interview. So Bill Nye the Science Guy. If you know who he is, if you grew up with him, if you have a question, or if you're just science-minded, 788-3205, 788-3205. A little bit of music. It's Friday morning. We need to chill out a little bit, don't we all? This is one of my personal faves from Indigenous supergroup, local supergroup, Indian City. This tune's called Star People.
We're on the road, we're leaving now. Gonna find the place they call tomorrow. Tomorrow. It's the place we dreamed about. If we go, there ain't no doubt they'll follow. They'll follow. Suddenly we've come this far. I realize there's so much more to this life. This life. And I believe in you, and if you believe in me, we're there by daylight. Oh, take me to the stars. We can never go too far, too far. Take me to the stars. Let's find out who we are, who we are. I wrote a song with you in mind. We can pass the past with you in mind for right now. Right now. I had a dream of you and I. 7 sacred teachings. Show us why and show us how. Show us how. Hear the voice of Mother Earth. She's asking what she's really worth. She's crying. To the stars. We can never go too far. Yeah, take me to the stars. Let's find out who we are. Who we are. We are sky watchers. Yeah, we are star people. Take me to the stars. We can never go too far. Yeah, take me to the stars. Let's find out who we are. Yeah, who we are. We are sky watchers. Oh, we are star people.
Sin City featuring Jim Cuddy. You probably recognized his voice there with Star People on CBC. It is 8:27 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on the app or YouTube. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thank you so much for joining us all this morning here on CBC. Well, we get a lot of listener feedback, and we aim to share it. And I know we don't always get time to share it. So in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be working with a mailbag. So remember to write to us if you have feedback on anything, radio893@cbc.ca. We often mention the listener line. Now, yesterday we got some response to a story. Community 204 was on the show. They're a nonprofit organization. They help meet everyday needs of Manitobans. We were talking yesterday with Daniel Hidalgo, who is the organizer with them, about mindful movers. So they basically help people who can otherwise not afford their moving costs or just need help with that. And in turn, they also have youth volunteers who gain work experience by moving furniture for people. So they do all this work in community. They're in need of a second trailer or some supports themselves right now. But after Daniel was on the show, we got this call.
I've been moved by Daniel twice because I have multiple disabilities, and he is amazing. And I donated because I know that he helps the youth also, and he has a huge presence in the community. Daniel, everybody in all the organizations that just help in the community. So Daniel helped move me into my place here in St. Boniface. He is one of the nicest, sweetest guys, awesome. And what he does is just amazing. Helps a lot of people. So just wanted to shout out to Daniel too, and all that he does by helping the youth and giving them kind of a job for the day. Okay, thank you guys. Okay, love what you guys do.
Thank you so much for the call and for shouting out Daniel. None of us do things alone, do we? So that allows me now to move into my own thank yous to our team on current affairs in our unit here. They work on all the programs. So morning, noon, afternoon, weekend, lots of hours. Associate producers, Wendy Parker, Corey Funk, Abby Adiyemi, Chloe Friesen, Issa Kickson, Sierra Sanders, Kalkanan Mulugeta, Marshall Hodgins, Chloe Friesen, Tessa Adamski, Jim Agapito, Edziu Leverin, Dylan Longhurst, and May McKillop. Host Nadia Kidwai, Marjorie Dalhouse, and Faith Fundal. Community reporter Shanley Vidal. YouTube producers Travis Peterson and Brad Lillies. Nellie Gonzalez, the show's producer of Current Affairs, and Leif Larson, the senior producer of audio at CBC Manitoba. Thank you, everyone, for all of your hard work, week in, week out, and particularly this week as well. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it is sunny and cold, minus 16 right now in Winnipeg. Gone are those warm temperatures of yesterday. Today's high, minus 8, but sunny throughout the day. Mental health advocates say cities need to move away from a police-first centered approach when responding to mental health and well-being calls. Instead, they say more faith needs to be put in crisis workers to be the primary responders. In the last few months, 6 people have died following encounters with Winnipeg police. Among those incidents was the shooting death of a 59-year-old last week who was struggling with mental health issues. Jennifer Chambers is the executive director at Empowerment Council. It's a mental health advocacy organization in Toronto. Chambers says police are not the best option to deal with people in crisis.
People shouldn't die because they're having a crisis. I think that when people are in crisis, they should have crisis workers. It's not a complicated concept. How many people have to die in crisis before it's obvious that we have to do something differently?
Winnipeg's Alternative Response to Citizens in Crisis, or ARC, only provides secondary responses once a situation is determined to be safe by a uniformed police officer. A man accused of killing 5 family members, including his 3 young children, is expected to make a court appearance in Winnipeg today. Ryan Manitobans has been charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of his common-law partner, their 3 children, and his partner's teenage niece. Police found their bodies earlier this month at multiple crime scenes in and around Carman. Court records show Manitobans had been previously convicted of mischief in 2019. At that time, court was told he struggled with a methamphetamine addiction and mental health issues. Tomorrow marks 2 years since Russia invaded Ukraine. In Winnipeg, Ukrainians who have fled the war are remembering that day. Yulia Okhromenko left the country when the Russian military approached her home near Kyiv. She took cover with her son, who is now 6, below their apartment building. The two arrived in Winnipeg in May of 2022, and she's grateful for the support but says it hasn't been easy being away from home.
I usually don't show people what I feel inside my soul, but it's hard. It's really hard. A few days ago, I saw a dream that I'm at my house and I saw my family.
Okhromenko says being surrounded by so many other Ukrainians in Winnipeg and finding a job as a florist has made the situation better. More than 20,000 Ukrainians have come to Manitoba since the war started. The councillor for Transcona wants the province to fine the city $1 billion for dumping raw sewage into the Red River. More than 225 million litres of sewage was discharged into the river over the past 2 weeks after 2 major sewer pipes failed. Russ Wyatt says the city isn't doing enough to maintain and upgrade sewer pipes.
Hopefully, with some sort of penalty on us, there should be something so that we take notice and that we change our management approach to how we manage our pipes and ensure that this never happens again.
Richard Grosshans is the lead scientist at the International Institute for Sustainable Development's water program, and he says this sewage spill is concerning.
Untreated wastewater has a lot of stuff like nutrients, like phosphorus and nitrogen. There's other contaminants, there's metals, there's pharmaceuticals and stuff that's in there. So that's getting untreated. And, when you have that raw sewage entering into a system like this, it's obviously not a good thing.
Groshan says we won't know until summer how much of an impact the spill will have on Lake Winnipeg. He says it could lead to an increase of algae blooms. Some Winnipeggers say they are frustrated after they were caught by the fallout of the Lynx Air shutdown. Cara Brereton Cook and her 6 friends were in Vancouver for a bachelorette party and to see Madonna live. And now all of them are out hundreds of dollars after the airline's shutdown forced them to rebook their flights home on a different airline. Brereton Cook says she wants her money back.
We're just mortified because, we all planned out our finances months ahead of time to make sure we had this trip. We're just now all just frantic. Some of the flights were like $1,200 home. We can't rent a vehicle and drive it home. You can't jump on a train. So how do people get home?
The Calgary-based ultra-low-cost airline announced yesterday it had filed for creditor protection and is shutting down all operations on Monday. The company says it has faced multiple challenges, including rising costs. You can find more on these stories as well as staying in step with news throughout the day. All you have to do is head to our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thanks very much, Heather, for all your work in the news department this morning.
Oh, thank you.
So big thanks to Alana Cole, as well as Heather Wells, and Megan Ketchison, who work so hard in our news department morning in and out. All right. What do we have to say, guys? Abby?
In Winnipeg, it's minus 15 degrees, mainly sunny skies all through the day. The province is going to be feeling sunny, and the wind chill is something we need to take into consideration. So it'll be sunny, but it's going to be cold.
All right. We got to wait till tomorrow for the warmth. Corey?
Commute's clear, but don't slip on the sidewalks. They're slippery.
I like it. So we usually don't talk about this because, we are here for you, and so we don't want to focus on ourselves. But I really do want to give special thanks to the team this week. Corey, you didn't get some sleep. Corey's got a little baby who was a little bit fussy last night.
Yeah, he been up since 3 o'clock, but that's okay.
Parents out there get it, Corey. They relate to that. So
at least he's cute.